I'm very surprised this band is not bigger than they are, because the songs and the whole album is of such high quality. Even the music video I thought was pretty cool. It feels to me like this band should be far, far more recognized, far more widely recognized than they are.
I think they've just gotten better and better over the years, and I think this is probably their best album yet. And I mean, they're definitely a songwriting masters. You know what I mean? Like they put together songs and there's so much like spite and venom and fury on it. Like, you know, it's one of those albums that you definitely feel like, you gotta have balls to listen to, you know.
yeah, it's not for wimps. Greetings, Legion. Welcome to episode 257 of Into the Necrosphere. This week, I continue my thrilling countdown of the best albums of 2024. I am joined by my very good friend, Karl Haikara, the Sinister Minister, my fellow horseman of the podcasting apocalypse, and the host of the Sol Nox Podcast. We are also joined by the Duke of Metal, Dave Berardi. You can check out his reviews on Instagram at Razor Eater Metal. The man is an absolute encyclopedia when it comes to extreme music. And he and Cole both provided me with their top 10s of 2024. You will hear my numbers 20 to 11 in the countdown. And trust me, there is a lot for us to talk about. An absolutely fantastic year, a vintage year in 2024 for black metal and death metal. Before we get to that, though, Morbus Dei are a black metal band hailing from Germany. They've been active since 2019, put out their new album entitled The World Left Behind on the 21st of December of last year. I absolutely love it. I think you guys are going to as well. So to whet the appetites for the 3 hours and a few odd minutes that you're going to be spending with me on Into the Necrosphere, this is a track off that record. It's called Decadence and Perversion. Morbus Dei with their track Decadence and Perversion. It's taken from their new album, The World Left Behind, available right now. I'll post a link to the Morbus Dei Bandcamp in the description to the podcast. If you like what you heard, you head over there and you know what to do. Let Morbus Dei know that it was old Jackson at Into the Necrosphere who sent you. If you are in an unsigned band, my friends, a reminder that you can send me your best recording to intothenecrosphere@gmail.com. If I like what I hear, I will feature it on the podcast. This show has been going for 257 episodes, as the numbering in the first part of my introduction suggested, and I have played upwards of about 200 unsigned bands on this podcast, so would love to continue that tradition. Of course, if you send it to me and I don't play it straight away, I'm not ignoring you. I do have a bit of a backlog, and likewise, if I don't like it, well, then you're not going to hear back from me whatsoever. Another reminder, just in case you don't know, I mentioned before, I'm a member of the Horsemen of the Podcasting Apocalypse. We fill your week from Monday to Sunday with the very highest quality entertainment, covering horror, metal, and all sorts of other grim and dark topics. We start on a Monday with Horrible 666, hosted by the inimitable Brandon Legion. On a Tuesday, yours truly casts hexes and slays poses on Into the Necrosphere. Next week, I am joined for the final installment of my Top 30 of 2024 countdown by Mike Hill of the band Tombs and Scorpion Throne. He's also a fellow horseman of the Podcasting Apocalypse. He's the host of Everything Went Black that comes your way every Wednesday, and he also hosts one of my favorite podcasts of the week, Necromaniacs, every Thursday. He's joined for that one by the outlaw Mike Scandado, by the Professor Jeff Kashid. They do old and new horror movies. It's always super entertaining. This past week, they did Don't Look Now, an absolute classic, and kind of really got me excited about watching that again. So certainly a podcast that I never ever miss. You shouldn't either. On a Wednesday, just backtracking a little bit, we've got my brother from another mother, Cheyenne of the band Trivax. His podcast, Iblis Manifestations, deploys every Wednesday. Thank you very much for the overwhelming support that you, the Legion, showed the Unholy Podcast Trio, which was the collection, the 3-part collection of a kind of single, semi-drunken 3.5-hour conversation that I had with Jerry Curranan of the Rauta YouTube channel and with Cheyenne of Iblis Manifestations. I mean, we had a blast doing that, and the response was so good. It is exceedingly likely we're going to be doing that at least once a quarter from now on. So if you enjoyed it, look out, because there's more coming your way. Finally, I've already mentioned him, but a reminder, if you dig the words, the gentle musings of the Sinister Minister, Karl Haikara, who you're going to get to see in just a few seconds, make sure you check out his podcast, Sol Nox, every Thursday and every Sunday. Likewise, something that I know the Legion enjoys and that I suspect this week you've been waiting for perhaps more than most, the weekly news rant. That'll be coming your way at the end of my conversation with Carl and Dave. We've got a lot to discuss this week, including why Behemoth has become the Chevrolet Bolt of black metal. We're also listening to new tracks by Profanatica, Saor, and a bunch of others, so stick around for that coming up later in the show. Right now, though, sit back and join me as I welcome the Duke of Metal, Dave Berardi, and the Sinister Minister, Karl Haikara. I know it's kind of mid-afternoon at your end, so you can drink technically, but nighttime, yes. I'm having me a tribute, a subtle tribute to Gaul with a glass of red wine. Hope you just very quickly, how has each of your New Year's gotten started? Like, hopefully, 2025 has been swimming so far, Dave.
It's been good. The end of last year was rough, but onward and upward, trying to focus on the positive. But that was tough. But I'm learning to process the grief of that and turn it into something positive. So music's always there. I've got the weights to crush, and I've got my family that keeps me happy and going too. So I'm looking on the positive, and I'm here with you, lovely gentlemen, as well.
You're growing a pretty formidable beard over there as well, man.
Man.
How?
No one needs to see my chin ever.
I was looking at episode 254, which is the one I recorded right before I went on holiday, and I hadn't. I actually it was a reason as simple as not being able to get a appointment with my barber in time, and I was starting to get a pretty heavy chin strap like you as well, but yeah. At the time, I thought it actually suits me, but I don't think that it does. Looks good on you though. I'll tell you what else looks good on you is that Deceased t-shirt.
Yes, and spoiler, they're not in my top 10, but they're on my list.
Oh, they're not?
I have
yeah, they're in my top 30. They're not on my top 10.
Yeah. And I was surprised listening to the episode today. The one that I thought was your number one was not your number one because you talked about it today. So I thought Aranzi Pazuzu had a for sure chance of being number one for you.
Yeah, well, we can talk about that in a little bit. Obviously, I'm going to do numbers 20 to 11 with you guys.
Yep.
But I'll share my number one with you afterwards. I bet my left nut, Carl, can guess what my number one is going to be, but shut the fuck up and don't say anything. But Sinister Minister, how have you been doing?
I'm doing all right. It's off to start this year. I mean, it's already halfway through January, which is crazy. So I have a feeling this year is going to go by pretty quickly. Yeah. Been trying to get back on track because during this holiday was like really busy for my work. So I got to a point where I have like literally nothing recorded for the podcast. I'm like going week to week, like right a second. You know what I mean? Like trying to get back on track with recording with guests and shit. So
yeah, that happens to me as well. Sometimes you'll have 5-6 episodes in a all done in the vault, ready to roll, and then you suddenly I feel sometimes when I've got a big backlog, it actually catches up to me that I then end up having nothing, and it's like Friday night, and you go, fuck, the episode has to be out on Tuesday, and I don't have any guests. So you send the bat signal out. But yes, because I was going to ask you, you've seemed to have kind of gone back to Sundays only. Are you going to stick to that, or are you still aiming for Thursday and Sunday as your schedule for Sol Nox?
It all depends on what I got. What the schedule is like. This, like for the next couple weeks, it'll be twice a week to try to get in my top list before this goes out. And then for the rest of the month, probably be double. But then it already depends on what I have. The Thursday day is the optional day. It all depends on what's going on. Sundays is like the main day that always will have an episode. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just depends on what I got in the can. If I have nothing in the can, then you're getting one episode a week. Well, I try to get caught up. You know what I'm saying?
I know you're a busy man professionally as well. Pimping ain't easy on the mean streets of Colorado.
You guys smack all those hoes.
Dude, well, I was going to mention too, I can complain about the weather over here, but I suspect the weather here in the UK is like, a mild spring day where the two of you are. I remember Nas was starting to post photos, or not even photos, like video on Facebook of snow and stuff like that in late October. I was like, fuck me. Like, we're barely in the winter yet.
Yeah, it's actually pretty mild during December, but once January hit, it started getting bad. Just the last little bit we had one was Arctic blast, which I'm sure Dave's feeling as well. But yesterday
it's minus 25 Celsius with the wind chill out here. So it's pretty crazy. It's frigid.
God, I'm getting chills just thinking about that. Anyway,
it was minus 15 here Celsius yesterday. So
all right. Well, we're not here to talk about the weather. We're here to get down to fucking business. You gentlemen very kindly have withheld your top 10s for 2024. We're going to go down those. One of you will be fortunate enough to choose a little interstitial, a little track we can listen to in between segments, and then we'll go down my numbers 20 to 11. So, starting with your number 10, Duke of Metal, Dave Berardi, what have you got?
All right, number 10. We know him, we love him. Mr. Jeremy Wagner's Earthburner, Permanent Dawn at my number 10. I have been a fan of Jeremy's in particular for God knows how long now. I'm a huge Broken Hope fan. I was a fan of the pre-Earth Burner to this lineup and this one. And when this one was finally announced that it was going to come out, I was really, really excited. And as soon as I heard it, I was like, yeah, this is going to be one that I have on repeat for a really long time. I mean, opening up with Ross Dolan on vocals as a feature, it was just perfect. And it's a concise runtime. It's a nice throwback to the older school of grind, Terrorizer especially, which we know Jeremy loves. And so that's my number 10. I absolutely love it.
It was so much fun having him on the show and finally getting to talk about that because, I mean, we weren't getting the first conversation I had with him was in Nando's, which, it's a chain restaurant that we have over here. I know there's a couple in the States too. It was in a Nando's on a Sunday afternoon in Earl's Court, and he'd come to the UK to promote Lupara, which was his new band.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, I've got this grindcore band that I'm busy working on called Earthburner. And I was like, oh, that's sick. Earthburner is one of my favorite songs on Grotesque Blessings. It's actually one of my favorite Broken Hope songs. And so I've kind of always been at him about, when is it coming out? When is it coming out? It was awesome that it finally happened. Great that he got to do it with Tyler, his stepson, who is one of the nicest and also funniest people I've ever met in my life. But I totally agree with you. Great album. In terms of what it sets out to do, it absolutely achieves its intention perfectly.
Agreed. Yeah. And I mean, the lineup of the band as well. You got Devin Swank on vocals, Mitch Harris makes appearances. It's just, it's stellar. It checked off all the boxes for me. So.
Sinister Minister, this is where you say I don't listen to that shit. It's not cult enough.
I'm listening to First Burner album actually. So I like this. What I heard on your episode you did with them, like the single you played, sounded good. I put it in my list to check out, but I didn't really get around to it before I had to put the list together. So.
Well, dude, one thing I would say, if you take nothing else away from that episode, take this away. If you ever get the opportunity to see Broken Hope live, they are one of the tightest, most intense, most aggressive death metal bands I've seen on stage in my life. And it's not just because I'm friends with Jeremy. They are fucking just on fire. And I've seen them. I've seen them 3 times with a new lineup, and every single time they've been better. I mean, they also, and I'm a fan of Cattle Decapitation, but they wiped the floor with Cattle Decapitation when they opened for them at the Underworld. I mean, it was to such a degree where I said to the friend who was with me, I said to him, like, I would not want to be the band that follows that up. That is just fucking on a different level. So a great band, but just a great dude too. And it seems to me, at least from a writing perspective, like this is going to be his year. So what have you got at number 10, Carl?
So number 10, I have Horna with Nyx Hymnia Yolda. I guess I pronounce it.
Cancelled, mate.
Horna.
we don't promote them Nazis on this podcast.
All right. I'll see you guys later. Yep.
Obviously, it's I think this is definitely one of the best things Horna has done. I really loved the last couple albums. I mean, ever since Spellgoth joined on vocals, I've been a big. I feel like it's better. I know there's a divide because I have friends who don't like they only like the older Horna, right? With the older vocalist, I can't remember his name. But I personally am more a fan of this era. Once he joined, and so I don't know. I think this is like really good album from them. Really focused. It's not that many tracks. Each track is really well written. One thing I was telling, because I recorded an episode with Drew Goth for the previous episode of my countdown, and we are talking about how like almost anything in my top 10 could almost be a 1, and that's one thing to keep in mind. Is almost everything here could be it's all kind of equal in my mind. And I think this album is just a fucking amazingly well written, produced, performed black metal album, and I love the acoustic track at the end as well. I think it's really cool.
Yeah. I agree. I would say, I mean, I'm not going to expand on it too much because it may feature later on my list. I did joke when Nathan was on last week, and I did say Spellgoth had a pretty good year as far as my top 30 list is concerned, I think he's a phenomenal vocalist. I was joking previously about the suspicion because, I spoke to the dude after the conversation I had with him on the podcast, and I thought he was a very nice guy. I didn't get I did not get anything from that conversation, nor should anybody get anything from the lyrics to suggest that the band merit the reputation they have amongst some of the fucking idiots on Reddit.
Well, Jerry just did Rauta. He just did a whole episode about Horner where he started off like being like, all this stuff's bullshit, basically.
Agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were supposed to play Montreal at the Messe des Morts Festival, and I guess some sort of branch of Antifa or whatever got word of it, and there was some stuff behind the scenes that didn't happen, and then Horner announced that they weren't going to be playing. So I think that was part of Jerry's video too. Yeah.
I mean, he like Spellgoth is pretty nonplussed about all of that sort of stuff. But I mean, I outright asked him like afterwards. I said, "Look, dude, I specifically didn't bring it up when we were talking because I didn't want to. I wanted to focus on music. I know there were going to be people sitting there waiting for you to say something that could land you in trouble." And he just said, "Look, I played on I played keyboards on half of a Best Noir record like when I was young." Years ago, and everyone's fucking freaking out about it. Just because I played keyboards on an album doesn't mean I'm the reincarnation of Hitler. But putting that aside, 100% agree with you. What a fucking record! I really, really like the previous one, the Kuolamon Kirju, however you pronounce it. I thought that was great. I think this is a continuation of a actually significant improvement on that.
I would agree. Yeah. I think that one album was great, but it was maybe a little too long. And this album, they cut the fat a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I went through a period where I was completely obsessed with this. I mean, this was, I'd say, around November time because it was when I got married. This was probably the only thing I was listening to for a fairly, probably 3-4 weeks. Loved it.
Yeah, it was everything in my top 10. The way I broke my list down is particularly my top 10 is the stuff that I just had to be honest and be like, what's the stuff that I listened to the most this year? That I kept going back to over and over again.
Yeah.
So everything on my list on my top 10 is something I've listened to a shit ton. And yeah, this one, I think around the same time, November, December, I was listening to this album a shit ton. So
yeah, my top 30 is based on bribes. So I've put it out to the record labels. You guys want to be included on it? I'm gonna have to see some green.
Yeah, you turned into what's that one that always is
Metal Hammer.
Metal Hammer. Yeah.
Oh shit! Don't even get me started.
Dave, you're number 9.
Okay, number 9, I have Swallow the Sun with Shining. I mean, you guys know me. This might be a little bit of outside the box for what I usually am into, but especially near the end of last year and into 2025, I hit this really, really big stride with Swallow the Sun, and this Shining record is actually pretty fucking magnificent. It's got all of their old school vibes, with the really growling vocals and the heavy riffs. But then there's these songs on here that they have the ability to make you fucking weep too, which is something that I love about this band. And just overall, I found myself throughout 2024, I listened to it when it first came out, and then I kind of shelved it for a bit, and then I got to listen to that album again. And then I would come back and go, yeah, this is really fucking cool. And then I would shelve it again. It was something that I constantly came back to. And I was like, when I was putting together my final list, I did a 40, which is probably the most I've ever done as far as these lists goes. I probably could have done a 200 if I really wanted to. This one kept popping in my head, and I'm like, yeah, this belongs in the top 10. So number 9, Swallow the Sun, Shining.
That's a great album. I love Swallow the Sun.
Yep.
I gave this one a complete miss, and I'm kicking myself about it now. I mean, I wouldn't say I've necessarily been the biggest fan of Swallow the Sun, but when this style of music, or when their style of music is executed properly, I do like it very much. Mother of Graves, I thought, did a really, really great record. It's probably more of an honorary mention for me. They were for a period of time on the list, but there were just other things that I preferred, based particularly on that criteria that Carl just said. What did I keep coming back to? But that Mother of Graves album I thought was superb. But Swallow the Sun, I shall check out for sure.
Yeah, like I said, it's not completely like the older, more maybe even heavier stuff. There's definitely more mellow stuff on it, but like when they go for it, they really go for it. It's excellent.
Yeah. Actually, on that topic, I should also say just the mellower stuff. So I consciously did not include anything non-metal on my list. I would say non-metal. My favorite non-metal album of the year by miles was the new Chelsea Wolf. That I thought that was just absolutely astonishing.
I'm gonna do a top non-metal list for my Patreon. Because I kept all the non-metal stuff separate.
Yeah,
I did too. Yep,
this makes life easier.
So, Sinister Minister, your number 9.
So my number 9 is Devil with Not Till End. So it's the culmination of a trilogy they've been doing for the past few years. And you can tell it's a trilogy because they're all got the covers with the forest. They're either blue or gray, depending on which edition of it is, but this whole trilogy has been incredible. I think Devil are one of the best Norwegian black metal bands out there operating currently. Not necessarily my favorite, but one that I think close to it. But then again, this is one of those albums that I think this album might be the best of the trilogy. But it's hard to say because I really like this whole trilogy. I like this trilogy because they've kind of added elements to their sound. Like some of their albums like are more stripped back, more raw. This is raw, but they've also added some keyboards and some elements that give it a little bit more 90s Norwegian feeling. Yeah, I mean, this album, like particularly in like November, December, I was in that kind of mode. I was listening to this album a shit ton, and I love like it has like some acoustic guitar parts that really give you that feeling of like a lot of the 90s Norwegian black metal stuff, like Over and all that kind of stuff, and yeah, I just think this is a fucking masterpiece. Great way to close out the trilogy that they've been doing since I think like 2020, and I believe was when the first one came out. So
it's definitely a very loving throwback to the early 90s. I really enjoyed the album. The only gripe I had with it, and it potentially was why I didn't enjoy it more. I felt and I know Outlaw Mike Scondado shared the same. He shared the same sentiment. I felt they buried the drums a little bit. I don't know why they recorded it that way, but I mean, there were parts where you could barely hear the drums, and I was like, you've got a Skinsman in Faust who just who's an incredible player, has a really aggressive kind of in your face style of playing. I wasn't sure why they would make that decision. But that being said. Good album.
Yeah, I didn't really feel the same way you guys did. Like, I actually listened to the same track that Mike was complaining about, and it's like, I think the drums are fine. So I don't know. I guess to me they're at an okay level. Because I guess to me, like, I've heard black metal albums that really bury the drums to the point that it's annoying, and this album didn't really ever feel that way to me. Because if you compare it to like I don't know, like the Cethereal album Lord of the Night Realm, where the drums are like so quiet that it's actually annoying. Like, it's actually like you can't help but be annoyed at how quiet they are. I never really felt that way listening to Devil, So, but I mean it could be a little louder, but
yeah,
I could definitely see that though.
Doesn't take away from the fact that it's a good record. Note, by the way, I've changed. He's no longer sheriff. He's now Outlaw Mike Scondado. he posted that photo on Instagram where he was wearing the Stetson, and I was like, all right. Time for an upgrade. Sheriff has turned in his badge. I think actually that came from Landman, which he's been raving about. It's on my list of things to watch as well. But anyway, not to derail us. At your number 8, Dave Berardi.
Number 8, I've got Brodequin with Harbinger of Woe. This could have easily been number 1. Like Karl had said, like all of these could be at number 1 at some point, and I think they were at some point throughout 2024. When you had Jamie on, Jackie, I was like a kid, like on Christmas. I was like, man, like I've never heard like an in-depth chat with the guy ever. And like he's a really intelligent dude. It was cool to like hear him talk about like in-depth, like what his lyrical influences are and all that kind of stuff. And this record like was as soon as I heard that first single, I was like, man, this is going to be like pummeling. I foresaw it being in my top 10 for sure. And it never left. It's brutal. It packs a punch. It's like an assault captured on like a recording in musical form. Yeah. It's like, it's like literally beating the shit out of somebody in musical form. Brodequin are so heavy and unrelenting, and this revamp lineup really shines through. Like the riffs and all of it is just, it's also the best production quality I think they've ever had on an album as well. And like you said on the episode with them, like one of the best comebacks in extreme music like ever. So it had to be in the top
100%.
Yep.
I liked Festival of Death. I liked Methods of Execution. I liked Instruments of Torture. This, in my opinion, I'm sure some folks will disagree, takes a fucking steamy piss on those albums. It is so much more aggressive, so much more in your face and impactful. And then the crazy thing is you speak to Jamie and he's this incredibly softly spoken, like quite clean cut dude. He's not the sort of man you expect is going to be throwing it down to the degree that he does on Harbinger of Woe. But I mean, Jesus Christ, in my opinion, one of the absolute best death metal albums of the entire year, no question.
Yeah, 100%.
Were you a fan, Carl?
No, I didn't listen to it at all.
Oh,
I didn't really like them. I didn't even know the songs. So. Sorry. It's not really my kind of thing.
Carl was like, I looked for pentagrams in the logo, and when I couldn't find any, I said, no, it's not for me.
And it's not really doing that kind of death metal, really, to be honest. So, like the sound of it and stuff doesn't really do it for me. I didn't think it was bad or anything. I listened to it like when he had him on. I was like, yeah. I'm good.
I'm surprised by that because, like Matt Prizzo, for example, I know he flipped out over this record. And a lot of dudes who, veer towards the more, necro, the more true side of things, really like this. There's always seems to me to be this sort of death metal band that would appeal to people that like, that predominantly enjoy a lot of black metal. And I know you listen to a lot of other stuff, but, you're kind of, when I think of you, I think of black metal in a very complimentary way.
Right.
But yeah, so I'm surprised you did like this more, but to each their own, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't bad. It just, I didn't really feel like compelled to really listen to it. Like, much, I tried, but I was just kind of like, I guess like the production style and stuff. I'm not a fan of that kind of production style of death metal. Like the way that the album sounds, like, I don't know. Like, it's like the same thing. Like, I've never really liked Suffocation and that kind of stuff either.
You don't like Suffocation?
No, goddamn.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Carly, you're dead to me.
I mean, like we've upgraded Scondado to the Outlaw Scondado, but I don't know if Sinister Minister is really something that can stick with you anymore. So, all right, let's see your number 8.
My number 8 is going to be True Black Dawn of Thick Circling Shadows. So, True Black Dawn is a Finnish black metal band. Just put out a new album this album, and I think it's definitely one of the best. It's a fucking amazing album. I don't know if you guys have listened to it, but
I have.
Yeah,
I did, but not as much as I probably should have. But yeah, the times that I did, it was excellent.
Yeah, it really.
I think I might have even shared it with you. Not sure if you heard it, and you were like, "Oh yeah, I'm ahead of you, Dave."
Yeah,
and I'm like, no surprise.
Yeah, I found out because my friend Joe posted it. I was like, "Oh, cool! They put out a new album." And then I think Jerry did a review as well, but for me, like, the atmosphere is so fucking dark and sinister on this album that the production, the songwriting, everything about it, like, really does it for me. It's one of those kind of albums that as soon as I heard it, I was like, "Oh, this is sick," and I listened to it a bunch of times.
To me, this was one of my holiday discoveries. While I was on vacation, I listened to Jerry's best albums of the year. He mentioned this. I listened to it, and literally within 2 songs, I was like, oh fuck, I'm gonna have to redo my top 30 because it has to be on this. It is so fucking cool.
Yeah,
it's just like ferocious, very quintessentially Finnish black metal, but it's just got a hard edge. And I find a lot of these World Terror Committee bands have that. I mean, obviously Horner on that label as well. There's a lot of great bands on World Terror Committee, but these guys, to me, they epitomize the type of black metal that I really enjoyed this year, that I really kind of gravitated towards. Like I mentioned to Nathan, I developed a real dislike for a lot of the sort of emotional, just fucking sissy shit that, I know somebody on, certain forums on Facebook will they'll really like and hold up as a great alternative to Horner. It's not to me, but True Black Dawn, magnificent album. Absolutely magnificent.
There's literally nothing of that kind of sissy black metal on my list. And I look at my entire report. But yeah,
no more Dawn Raid.
There's no Dawn
Raid. no agriculture.
No agriculture, no. Yeah, and
oh my god.
And I actually realized that World Terror WTC Records has about, I think, 3 or 4 albums in my top 10. So I guess whatever they're doing it right. So they put out some fucking sick shit. So
yeah, I'm just having a look now. They've got 2 on my list,
and
so they had a good year.
Them and Territory Possessions. Pretty much, there's only one album from the Territory Possessions put out this year that's not on my list, and it was on my list until I thought of something that kind of knocked it off. So
yeah,
they're 2 of the best labels I think out there.
Yeah, I agree.
For this kind of ripping, vicious black metal,
this ripping, real deal black metal.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's our new genre. Instead of ecstatic, it's real deal black metal. That's
real deal black metal.
We're gonna print shirts with that shit.
Black metal for men.
Yeah. All right, Dave, at number 7.
Number 7, I have Vitriol with Suffer and Become. I absolutely fucking love this band. And for the longest time, it actually was at the top of my list. But just because it's at number 7 does not mean it's not worthy of being number 1 or in anybody's top tiers at all. Was fortunate enough to catch them live with Goat Horror headlining. And it was just after their bass player decided to poof off of a tour. And I was like, at first I was like, well, how are they going to pull this off as a 2-piece? They pull it off really fucking well as a 2-piece. And I've got to say, Kyle, as a musician, as a singer, like a vocalist, as a guitar player, the man plays with such fucking conviction and power. Like, being in his presence as he was playing, it was like you could feel what he was exuding. Like, it was like, dripping off of his body. The whole record is such a step up from To Bathe from the Flood of Cowardice too, which is an amazing record in itself. But I feel like this was like the statement, like, this is Vitriol, this is what we do. The black metal influence on it, along with the death metal, is just perfect. There's not a weak moment on it. It begins with this crazy, clean guitar that's it's not in some sort of succinct way. It comes off almost like a creepy movie soundtrack at first. And then when it leads in, it doesn't let up until the very last note of the record. And I absolutely just fucking love it. Seeing them live was a total treat. If they continue as a 2-piece, it works. I mean, the guy's got, I think he said 33 pedals on his guitar pedal board. So I don't think he really even needs a bass player anymore. And I can't wait to see what they do next. So yeah, Vitriol.
I definitely think 2024 was a coming out party for Vitriol. A lot of folks were familiar with their previous records, or at least their previous record, I should say. But I don't think anyone was expecting something this impactful and this aggressive and this heavy. And I'm delighted for Kyle. He's a fantastic guy. I loved having him on the podcast. I think on Suffer and Become, you can clearly hear the frustration of a conservative man living in Portland. But it's suffering in the literal sense in Portland every day. But yeah, it's a superb album, absolutely fantastic, and I'm very, very pleased for them as a band that it has gotten the level of recognition that it has received thus far.
Yep, I agree, and I love seeing them on like all these tours. Like they're opening for Dying Fetus here, they're with Goat Whore there, they're on like a Deathcore, the Chaos and Carnage tour. They're like the kind of like almost like the odd band out, but I know like for sure they're winning over crowds every night. So
yeah,
kudos to them. Sky's the limit.
Agree.
Yeah. They were there earlier on my list, so people can hear about.
They were number 30 on my list. Which I know is probably lower than people were expecting, but I think my list is pretty formidable.
Yeah, they were.
Dude, the output this year! Oh my god! Like I don't blame anybody where they put their records at all. It's a task.
To be honest, 11 through 40 was on my it's like almost just relative. It's kind of relative. It's almost just like I just listed albums because it was like they're not really better than the other because they're all so good, So
yeah, and there's every chance that depending on your mood, it's going to change.
Exactly. So
yeah. That being said, cast in stone, what is your number 7?
So my number 7 is Bythos with Chthonic Gates Unveiled.
Nice.
Which I think this album came out on Terrator, if I remember correctly. And,
yeah, it did.
Yep. And obviously, second album. I was obsessed with the first Bythos album when it came out. Obviously, this is like the side project of Behexen. And I think it's interesting because the first album is definitely more different from Behexen. This album sounds more like Behexen, which is kind of funny. I know they're working on a new Behexen album, but I really love the kind of mix of black metal with the kind of more melodic elements that they're going for as well. I think this album is like great from beginning to end, well written, catchy, really serious. I mean, they're very, very serious about the occult and like what they're talking about. Because I know that Torog is very serious about all that stuff from everything I've heard. And that's something I really appreciate. Like when you listen to this album, you feel like, yeah, the same way you feel like with Behexen, you feel like these are guys who believe 1,000% in what they're doing, and I love that,
Also features the drum stylings of Kasara, aka Lori Reitkunen of Horner, brother of Spellgoth. But yeah, I agree with you. Also on my list, we may get to it tonight. What a fucking record! A real journey that it takes you on as well, which I absolutely love. It's a band that kind of knows exactly when to turn on the melody and exactly when to turn on the aggression. Like they pull the right levers of atmosphere, violence, at just the right time. It's a phenomenal album, and it's the kind of album that had this year not been as crazy good as it was. It would have been a number one choice without a doubt. If this was 2015 or a couple of years back, probably would have been my favorite album of the year.
Yeah, the first album came out I think in 2020. That was a pretty tough year though because Akhlys No came out that year and a bunch of other great albums. So it was obviously, but it was up there for me that year. And yeah, same thing this year. It's a fucking masterpiece, So
yeah, agree. All right, David, number 6. What have we got on your list?
Number 6 is Ulcerate with Cutting the Throat of God. Basically, sorry. This was also a sure contender I thought was going to be for number 1 as well. For a time it was. But I was like, how can they ever top their previous record, which we all know was absolutely incredible? This one definitely blew me away from the first time that I heard it. The songs are so intricately put together, and like it's almost hard to describe like how good and how precise that these guys are. It's like every note feels like it's been carefully placed, every drum part, every fill, and I'd have to say that they did top themselves over Staring to Death and Be Still, which is amazing. But at the same time, I think this one is just showing like how capable these guys are of creating such amazing extreme music. There's not a weak moment on the record. It's captivating throughout. It doesn't overstay its welcome as well, which I find with someone like, especially with like longer songs and stuff like that, it can feel like it's drawn out for too long. This one is, I would say, is like the perfect length. And just overall, it's just incredible. Like, it blows my mind whenever I listen to it, how these three dudes can just put out such an amazing sound.
I definitely feel with Cutting the Throat of God, they leaned into a lot of the best parts of Stare into Death and Be Still, and they amplified that, the clean guitar, the atmospheric stuff, and then they deployed that in such a way that when the album gets more heavy and more aggressive, those parts really stand out even more than they did on the previous records too. So it doesn't just, it's not a case of the songs just being relentlessly pummeling and then, you kind of go from one to the next. I feel like this is the album where more than any other, they have written really, really beautifully self-contained songs. And if you go go back to the classic songwriting of Metallica and Master of Puppets as an example, we can all remember exactly we know exactly what the thing that should not be sounds like. It sounds very different from Sanitarium, which sounds very different from Disposable Euros. You have the same thing on Cutting the Throat of God, and it's not easy when you're an extreme metal band to do that. I think they did it masterfully, and I completely agree with you. Magnificent album.
Yep. Karl?
Yeah, it's earlier on my list. So it's on my top 10.
Nice.
Because mostly just because I didn't listen to it as much it wasn't one of the albums I listened to a lot or kept going back to, but I felt like it was a really great album. I actually might prefer the previous one slightly more personally, but I might also be because when it came out in 2020, it just hit at the right moment for me, if you know what I mean, like where it really hit me at the right moment. I listened to it a lot. Where this time, when Cutting Throat of God came out, I wasn't really in the mood for that kind of stuff when it came out, so I didn't really listen to it a lot. And I'll probably come back around to it later on when I'm in the mood and listen to it a bunch more.
It's an interesting thing with Stare into Death and Be Still because I don't know about you, but I mean that was an album that came out during COVID's first year. I felt that it had pretty impeccable timing. It seemed to suit the zeitgeist better than any other album that year, and which is why it appealed to me so much. So, yeah, if I had to base my enjoyment of Cutting the Throat of God on how often I went back and listened to it, I did go back during the release year and listen to Stare into Death and Be Still a lot more than I did Cutting the Throat of God, which again could be the timing. But I mean, I enjoy both albums very much.
Yeah, Cutting Throat is still a great album. Deserves to be on people's top 10s or everything. I just didn't really listen to it as much, so I had to be honest with my list. Be like, just what I listened to the most. Like, so
What have you got at number 6?
So my number 6 is Merrimack with Of Grace and Gravity. So I think this is probably Merrimack's best album in my opinion. I've been following this band ever since the early 2000s, like a long ass time. Their whole career, every album that comes out, and I think they consistently put out great albums and have gotten better and better and better over the years. I know some of my friend Joe didn't like as much, but for me, it hit me hard, like really right in the right spot for whatever reason. So this is an album that literally I've gone back and listened to a lot all year. I played it a ton on my radio show. Like I've always felt like really compelled to listen to it in a way, if that makes sense. Like it just like really hit me in the right spot, the way the production is, the songwriting, the atmosphere, the feeling of it. So, I think it's definitely, I think it seems like Merrimack got a little bit more exposure to this album, which is good. And I think that they're one of the best French black metal bands operating right now, in my opinion.
Yeah,
so,
I agree. Definitely definitely a French gem. I was a huge fan of the Causal Mass, which came out in 2012.
Yeah, that's great.
there is a song on there that I would reference people to check out if they don't know the band, called Worm in the Divine Intestine, which is just fucking fantastic. And I actually, interestingly enough, I felt like the spirit of that song they continued on this record, which is partly why I enjoyed it so much. But absolutely one of the best things they've ever done. And I completely agree with you. I'm glad more people, really were forced to pay attention after this album came out, and hopefully the trend continues for them.
Definitely.
Right, what have we got at number 5, Dave?
Number 5, Heathen Deity with Satan's Kingdom. This album, I listened to it the first time the day that it came out. I had to drive home from work in a snowstorm, and I had to take this longer way home. And this accompanied me on there. And it was the perfect soundtrack for driving in such conditions. And I remember hearing the first track and going, holy shit, like, this is fucking evil and barbaric. And I absolutely love it. And as a whole, this entire record really like blew me away. I don't think I was expecting it to be this level. Like, True English Black Metal is a great record, but I really think that these guys stepped up their game with this. The interludes, the clean singing, the more acoustic guitars that they've interlaced in songs. It's just a fucking amazing black metal record. And when I shared it and did a review on my page for it, Mr. Dagon himself reached out and had some kind words to say about what I said. And we've hit it off. We've become, I consider him a friend now as well. Great guy. When Jackie, you had them on the news rant just near the end of last year, they're always like interesting to hear talk, and just true, like, pardon the pun, but they're true masters of their craft, and I think this record really proves that. So had to be
they are also a fantastic band to see live. So if you ever have the opportunity to do that, I can take or leave a lot of black metal bands live, but Dagon has a lot of energy when he's on stage, and as does the rest of the band. But I would wholeheartedly agree about the fact that this is a big step up in terms of songcraft. A lot of the great things about true English black metal, including the clean singing, they've done more of. And actually, again, it's always great when people that you consider friends, and I certainly consider Dagon a friend. It's great when people that you consider friends do well. You always want to root for your friends. I'm always extra harsh on my friends' work, partly because I never want to be seen as somebody who's singing the praises of people who I have a personal relationship with. But there's no getting away from the fact that Satan's Kingdom is top notch.
100%.
Was that an album that you spent any time with, Carl? Because it feels to me like it's something you would like.
Not yet. I had him on the podcast. I like the songs he played, but I hadn't got around to it because it's not streaming on Spotify or anything. And
it is. It's up on Spotify. That's where I heard it. Yeah.
When he did the episode, though, it wasn't on there. At least it's here. So it took a long time for the Trivax album to hit Spotify, but I had it already from Cheyenne. But for example,
maybe Denver's been blacklisted.
But no, you know what it is. I think it's something with, and I say this respectfully because I like Dale very much, but I think it might have something to do with the way that just Cult Never Dies manages their media.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I agree with you. There was, I know True English Black Metal took eons to show up, and Trivax's album took eons to show up as well. So, why I don't know.
I didn't get on Bandcamp, check it out, which I need to. But I really like the songs he played on the podcast, so definitely hit my interest. I just didn't get around to listening to it before putting together the list. So
their videos are pretty. The videos are nice and grim too.
Yeah, very much so. All right, what have you got at number 5, Carl?
So number 5, I have Polish band Deus Mortem with Thanatos, and it's a band I found a few years ago. Become a really big fan of this band when they were announced they were in studio and releasing a new album. I was pretty excited. So I follow him on Facebook. I think I'm friends with one of the main guys on Facebook as well. And he posted like a picture of them in the studio. I was like pretty excited. I actually think this is their best album yet. I forget who put out this album. I think it might be WTC, or I'm not sure. But this is just a fucking perfect black metal album in a lot of ways. Like, it's just like ripping throughout. They have some little bits of acoustic guitars, like 90s black metal type of vibes. A lot of old school. It just goes. They're not very melodic, but they're more like vicious with some melodies here and there. A lot of old school riffs. Great, absolutely like perfect production. Awesome vocals. Just a really great black metal album that really feels like evil as fuck, you know. So this one I listened to. When I first came out, I listened to it like 3 times in a row. Like, because I was just kept listening to it. I had it on repeat, and I just kept listening to it. Before you knew it, I'd listened to it like 3 times. So
yeah, we had I had a high-ranking member of the Legion, Cam Shave, fellow Canadian, Dave Berardi. He's been really championing this band with me, and I like it very much. I think of the because he turned me onto them through Cosmocide, their previous album.
Yeah,
and I think initial impressions, I enjoyed that album a little bit more than I enjoyed Thanatos, but it is a good record, no question about that. And I think it's probably one that the time of year that I got it at, had I had a little bit more time to listen to it, it might have made my list. But no taking nothing away from them. Great stuff.
Yeah, have you?
I'll have to check that one out. Yeah. No, I haven't. That's why I love doing these lists with you guys, because there's always maybe like 1 or 2 that I have to like check out or spend some more time with. So I'll definitely check that one out.
Yeah, definitely.
It's well worth doing. All right, what have you got for us at number 4, Dave?
Number 4. Hopefully I don't get canceled with this one either. I have Satanic War Master with Exaltation.
I knew it. I knew you would say it.
It's proof though that, all these publications putting out their lists in end of October and November and all this kind of stuff, don't do that shit, because then you get amazing black metal records like this one that come out, kind of with a moment's notice in, almost near the end of December. And that's exactly what happened with this. First, I didn't realize what it was, because it almost seemed like it was going to be like a collection of other stuff, like maybe previously unreleased songs or whatever, but it was a brand new record. And on the day it came out, I checked it out on streaming, and it blew my mind. This Werewolf has this uncanny ability to just write these amazing black metal songs. And it never feels old or drawn out or anything like that. And I think it's a step up from Amongander, the previous one. And this one has a little bit more of a rawness to it as well, which I really like. And I think he said in his promotion post for it that it was recorded over like during the pandemic. So these are songs that he spent a lot of time on, and you can tell that they're really well crafted. He's got these amazing riffs throughout as well that really stick in your mind. And just overall, I just love the grim and harshness of it. So yeah, that's my number 4, Satanic War Master. Great album. And just as an aside, I've already spoken about my thoughts on people releasing their top, their best albums of the year in October. But I will say I looked into it a little bit more while I was away on holiday, just watching little clips of different channels and reading different websites and stuff like that. And I've come to the conclusion, and I'm just saying this unequivocally, if you have a metal channel on YouTube, or you run a blog, and the word monetization leaves your mouth relative to the content that you put out, you're a fucking poser, a loser, and I want nothing to do with you. Nothing. It blows my mind that people will like there'll be channels where they talk about a specific kind of band, and like, I don't know if I should talk about this band because we might lose monetization. It's like, are you that big of a fucking fool that you can't go out and earn money in the real world, that you want to come and do this to make a living?
So yeah, I mean, I realize that putting out your best of list in February is not going to necessarily, or in late January, isn't necessarily going to pull in the clicks. But I don't give a shit. I mean, if I would rather not do it whatsoever than, you know, in October jump the gun and then you end up missing all of the great stuff that came out in, you know, November, December. Satanic Warmaster is a great example of that. It's it was an album that was just dropped on everybody by surprise. I love it. And, you know, when I listened to it, it's one of the first things I thought. It's not going to feature on any lists, partly because everyone's petrified of saying the name out loud, lest werewolf appear in the mirror like Candyman. But you know, it's also because they haven't heard it. Like I thought it was laughable when Decibel Records actually said, "Oh well, we've already heard everything by October." No, you fucking haven't.
No
bullshit. I do not believe that at all.
Yeah, I agree.
So
I mean, there's been bands in the past that have put records out literally on December 31st. It's like, you know, this isn't anything new, you know. And there's even I'll name drop him. Nate Garrett has a podcast. He put out his list end of November, and I'm going, dude, I thought you were like trying to champion like all this underground shit and stuff, but you're putting out your list in November when December was still chock full of like great releases. So, and then you get surprises like this that just end up blowing your mind too. So
Nate Garrett plays the Weak Man's Game. He also fronts Neon Nightmare. Said my piece on that band. Like there is nothing beyond Typo Negative. I never want to hear of anyone doing anything that tries to sound like it. I reject a pale horse named Death. I reject Neon Nightmare. So anyway, what have you got at number 4, Carl?
So my number 4 is going to be My Dying Bride with Immortal Binding. So
great record.
Yeah. Oh, what an album.
It was amazing. Ghost of Orion, I felt, was a disappointment after such a long wait since Field of Misery, which was such an amazing album. And there's a lot of reasons for that, obviously. And I felt like Immortal Binding came out, and it was like it just feels so confident. Like everybody feels confident. You know, Aaron sounds great. The music sounds great. It sounds like the true follow-up to Field of Misery. You know what I mean? Like it feels like Ghost of Orion never happened, right? Because it doesn't have anything to the sound, like the production, nothing about it has anything to do with that album. It's all like feels like very much like pick up the pieces from Field of Misery with that style. Nods to the earlier stuff like Line of Deathless Kings and Songs of Darkness. So to me, it's just like a perfect My Dying Bride album. Great lyrics, great music, great atmosphere. Aaron singing. Aaron sounds amazing. You know,
great singing by the only man who should sing for My Dying Bride.
Yeah, not if Aaron ever
1,000%
leaves the band, I'll never listen to anything they put out. Right? You know, like if they can play shows with the guy from Swallow's Son all they want, but they can't replace Aaron. You know what I mean? Like,
no, exactly. I agree.
Like
just because Sabbath were able to replace Ozzy Osbourne with Ronnie James Dio doesn't mean you can do it with My Dying Bride.
No, you can't do it with My Dying. Aaron's voice, his lyrics, his whole artistic, point of view for the band is like essential part of My Dying Bride.
He is My Dying Bride, in my opinion. I know he doesn't write all the music and stuff, but in terms of the persona of My Dying Bride, he embodies the band. Like there's very few other vocalists, save for Pete Steele, who I touched on earlier, that I think are quite at that level. Like when it comes to death metal, black metal, I think personally many vocalists are pretty interchangeable. You couldn't replace Glenn Benton in Deicide, but I mean they managed to replace Chris Barnes very successfully in Cannibal Corpse, and the list goes on. But a band like My Dying Bride, no sir. Paradise Lost would be the same. If Nick Holmes leaves the band's over.
Yep. And I think with Paradise Lost, Nick and them, I think they know that, right? Like if you the Paradise Lost, you need to have Nick Holmes and
Greg
on guitar, those two are Paradise Lost, right? You know, in the same way, I think My Dying Bride is Aaron and Andrew. You know, their combination with Aaron. You know, because Andrew writes most of the music and Aaron writes all the lyrics and everything. Like, I think them, they are the band. So if they can't work it out, then the band needs to stop. You know, if Andrew wants to continue doing music, then he needs to make a new band, like, in my opinion, right? But I guess we'll see what happens with that whole thing. But yeah, I just think this is an amazing album. You know, we're particularly in the top 4. We're in each one of these albums could be number 1. You know, so
agree.
Yeah.
All right, what have we got at number 3 for you, Dave?
Number 3, I have fellow Canadians, Panzerfaust with Sons of Perdition 4 to Shadow Zion. This thing is a monster of a record. It's pretty relentless. And these guys just, again, they tick off all the boxes for me when it comes to extreme music. There's so much power and conviction in each of these songs. It runs smoothly. It doesn't drag on. It is the perfect combination to this quadrilogy as well, I think. I know, like, these guys, they tour relentlessly. I wish they toured Canada more so I could actually catch them live. I know, Jackie, you got to see them earlier this year too, earlier in 2024. Yeah. And I'm pretty jealous of that. You know, it's like, dudes, if you're watching right now, tour Canada, you know, Ottawa especially. Even if it's just like guerrilla style and you go up on Parliament Hill, like, come play a show, you know?
No.
As a big fuck you to
they'll celebrate when Pierre Poilievre is prime minister. They'll play a show.
Yeah.
I just as an aside, I will just say the nicest guys in that band that I have maybe ever met in any band, like really, really just the best dudes. So it was awesome seeing them live. It was really nice getting to meet everybody afterwards, and, you know, spending time with Brock. I mean, Brock is someone that I consider a friend as well. I'm delighted for them that they managed to undertake something that's so ambitious and cap it off so successfully, because, you know, putting the final chapter into something like this, I don't think is easy. I mean, we spoke about it at length in the episode that I had him on, but they did it really, really well, and I completely agree with you. It is the best possible finale to Sons of Perdition that they could have come up with.
Yeah, I'd like to get Brock on my podcast at some point, since I think he and I could talk a lot about
he's a
history, and
he's a good dude. Yeah, no, he's a very good dude, and he will fucking talk your ears off.
Yeah, and it's a great album. It's not in my top 10, but it's a fucking killer.
No, he's not going to be on your he's not going to be on your podcast anymore, mate. Sorry. So, what have you got at number 3?
So my number 3 is Whoredom Rife with Den of Vrede and Macht. So,
nice, good one.
Whoredom Rife, days go from strength to strength. Each album is a masterpiece they put out, and I think this album actually is a step up even from the last album, which I thought the last album was amazing. But I think that this one, there's something about the songwriting and the production that is just so fucking good on this album that it just really elevates it. You know, I keep going back to it. Just one album's, like, particularly there's a song Ravenous on it, which I just really, I kept playing on the radio show constantly, and the last song, Beautiful End of All, I love that track. It's just a fucking beast of an album, in my opinion. You know, a lot of different things going on it, from traditional Norwegian style, like, you know, they got that kind of mayhem type of riffs. They have melodic riffs. They have, and they even have, like, you know, just like more mid-tempo things. There's just a lot of variation on here, and it all flows. And I absolutely love his vocals. His vocals are just fucking beastly, you know. So this one is like, again, one of his albums I kept going back to all year. So it had to be
great record. I could swear that they were going to play at Inferno in 2025, but I don't think that
on the gates.
Then I shall see them there. I'm going to get to see Bythos at Inferno. which is what I'm looking forward to most on that entire lineup.
Pretty sure Herdman Knife is Beyond the Gates. So is Oscar Reagan, which was a band that was on my top 10 last year. I just saw that they're playing Beyond the Gates as well. I definitely should see them live. Sick.
I think for you, what would be the biggest highlight at Inferno is Behemoth are playing on Sunday.
Oh yeah, definitely. Behemoth when they're good, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay, at number 2, Dave.
So number 2, would you guys mind, just because of time wise, could I go number 2 and then I'll lead into my number 1?
Motherfucker. Cool. Yeah, that's fine. That's no problem.
Yeah.
Okay, so number 2, we know them, we love them. They're our buds. Werewolves die for us. I mean, what can I say that hasn't been said about these guys on this podcast, especially? I will say the best extreme metal band going right now. You can fight me to the death for it, but I'll kick your fucking ass about it. With each record that they're putting out, they get better and better. I mean, they just keep stepping up their game more and more. And when I got the advanced copy of it, I remember hearing like the lead into the first track and going, holy shit, these guys, there's just no stopping them. This record just builds on everything that they've done before, and even more so. Matt's guitar playing, I put him up there in the absolute top tier metal guitar players of all time. Like, there's no doubt about that. Sam's a beast. Dave on drums, beast. This band, you know, if anything ever came about, they could just call themselves Beast as well. If they couldn't, you know, keep the name Werewolves due to some sort of stupid copyright shit. But I really think that their output speaks for itself. I'm doing the best I can to get them more promotion out here in Canada, because I really think that people need to be more familiar with them as well. And yeah, this record is just, it's mighty, mighty, mighty from start to finish. And one Jackie Smith is also featured on it, which I know, you know.
Makes it one of the best albums of all time.
Exactly. But well, it's like the perfect soundbite, and they're not afraid to like make fun of themselves as well by including things like that. And I think it just adds to their personality.
True masters, I believe. I mean, you know, and everything. I think Sam is one of the best death metal vocalists ever. Matt is one of the best guitarists ever. Dave is one of the best drummers of all time. He's certainly one of my favorite drummers right now. He's somebody that, you know, just on a technical level, I think plays rings around most other drummers. But the fact that he plays with so much feeling and so much flair, you know, there's nothing that you can fault them on. You know,
guys, I have to step really quick. Like I told you, advance. Sorry, if there was an emergency at work, I had to step out. I just got word that I needed. So unfortunately, I have to step out for just a minute. I will be right back though. Okay.
All right, no problem.
I'll do my number.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
Yeah,
you do your number 2, Cole.
So my number 2 is going to be Night Shall Drape Us with Lunatic Choir.
Mm-hmm.
Which of course is I believe another project, the main project of Spellgraft's brother.
Yeah.
Yep. And I believe he was also on the Bythos album, and I think he plays with horn as well sometimes. But yeah, so I think he's on like 3 albums in my top 10. But yeah, I just think that this album is an incredible piece of black metal. Like, and it's mixed, like he's got Avgron's Prophet, you know, Bjorn from Ritual Death and Darvaza and stuff on vocals on some tracks. I think Spellgoth's on some tracks and vocals.
Spellgoth is on some tracks too.
He's got I think maybe Torog is on some tracks. I think he's got like the best, you know, he's got 3 of the best black metal vocalists, I believe, or all, you know, in working on this album, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And to me, like, it just is a perfect black metal album. I've been listening to this album like constantly ever since it came out.
Yeah. No, dude, I Bythos and Nightshell Drapers came out at around the same time.
Yeah.
And they've been mainstays with me ever since they came out. I think that I struggle to pick which one I like the most. We'll find out potentially in a little bit which one I sit with now, but honestly, it changes depending on my mood. And I would also just echo what you said around, those vocalists. I mean, what a lineup, having those three vocalists in your project. Wrath is fucking incredible. Spellgoth is one of the best of the best. Infection is awesome as well. Masterpiece album. Absolute masterpiece.
Yeah, I think and I think he's been working on this album for a while. Because I think he's on all the instruments. Yeah, he just has these vocalists on it, and it's it's just let me see. Yeah, so you got Infection. So not Torog, but Infection's in the band, who's also in I mean, it's just Wrath and Spellgoth. So I mean, it's obviously Wrath is part of the what do you call it? The Norwegian scene. And then everyone else is Finnish, but Wrath is also in Behexen as well. I think he plays guitar for Behexen. But I mean, it's just I guess the reason I just kind of beat up Bythos because they're both great albums, but I think I kept going back to this one a little bit more throughout the year. That's why it's my number 2. So.
All right. Well, in the absence of Dave, no doubt fighting crime where he is. What have you got at number 1?
So you probably know my number 1 already, but it's
I'm about to say is no guessing your number 1.
It's Akhlys of House of the Black Geminus. So obviously not this one is things too being friends with Nas and everything. I've heard this album from its beginnings, when he just had basic demos still with click tracks and stuff, to when he did the program drums, to then finally hearing early demos, and then finally the early mixes even of the album. So it was I've been hearing this album for a while even before it came out, right? I mean, I had the album months before it came out, but so I've sat with this one a lot, listened to it a lot, talking with him about the concept and everything is something I relate to and as well in a deeper way. So I think this album hit me on a more personal level than even Ephialtes, you know what I mean? I think it's just a fucking I think I love the pitch dark atmosphere of this album. I think it's a little bit if Ephialtes, it is more if Melanoe was more of a, I guess nightmare, right? I think this album is more of a dark, you're in a really dark horror movie wandering through this kind of nightmare world, but it's not the same type of nightmare as Melano, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I described it to him when I spoke to him once and said, Melano feels like you're being dragged into the abyss, and this feels like you're in the fucking in the darkest recesses of the abyss, and you can't get out. It's a very suffocating record. Exactly. But also a very unique album, and an album that I think I mean, it's clearly cemented them as one of the biggest bands in the underground black metal scene. I mean, there's no question about that.
Yeah, there's definitely no question about it. I think it's interesting when it came out, the kind of weird reaction it got with some fans not really liking and other people liking it, right? Because I think that people they didn't want to just repeat themselves, right? I don't think the album repeats itself at all. I don't think it's just Melano Part 2. And I think that was the right choice, in my opinion.
We've got Dave returning at literally the perfect time.
Yeah.
So we just completed Carl's number 1.
Hey boys, sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. I was saying we've just Cole's just dropped his number one. I said I didn't realize that Milli Vanilli has released an album in 2024, but let's hear what Dave has got. He's number one.
Yeah.
Okay, number one, I've got Defeated Sanity with Chronicles of Lunacy. This record, as soon as I heard the first single, it was just like another Brodican moment for me. I was like, God damn, this is going to be amazing. They are top tier brutal death metal for me. Much like, how Dying Fetus was for me last year, this record was like the same thing for me this year. Literally from the word go, it's like blast beats nonstop. Lily Gruber, their drummer, is also in Ingurgitating Oblivion, and they had another amazing record this year too. But for me, Defeated Sanity are like, there's Dying Fetus, there's Defeated Sanity, and there's Brodican as like the top tier brutal death metal bands out there right now, especially. And this record is just incredible from start to finish. It's only about a little over half an hour. And for that half an hour, again, it's like you're being physically assaulted on tape. And it's absolutely incredible. And I was like, thinking about it, I'm like, could this be number one? And then the more I listened to it, I was like, yeah, this is number one for me. So Defeated Sanity, man. Number one.
Wasn't expecting that.
Chronicles of Lunacy.
I was expecting you to have the same choice as Carl did for his number one, which was Akhlys, House of the Black Geminis.
Oh, you know what? They are on my list. I think they're, I can't remember at the top of my head. They're just out of number.
I think they're like number
the top 10.
Yeah. I remember
they're
you
like,
posting
they're
it, so I knew
number,
it wasn't going to be that one.
They're 11 or 12, yeah, something like that.
They're not number one, which is the real error. But it's the real error,
which is an amazing
judgment.
Record too. Yeah, I mean, like I had such a hard time picking a top 40, let alone picking a top 10. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. All right, we're going to have us a little segue, and then I will come back with my 20 to 11. Cole, gentleman's choice on what song we listen to. What do you want us to go with?
Let's play make sure the thinking Through the Abyssal Door from Akhlys would be a good one.
All right, we'll do that.
Yeah. Killer.
Right, are you going to stick around, Dave?
I do have to dip, boys, unfortunately.
Yeah, no problem at all.
And then my daughter's got ballet class as well, so I gotta. I'm playing the dad stuff and yeah. I apologize for having to do that.
It's my fault for fucking up the times.
Oh, it's okay. But people were aware that I was doing this call, and then I said, only in an emergency can you interrupt me. And then literally they got some sort of complaint about a customer, but then I did a sweep of where I am. Apparently the guy was being an asshole, but then I found no one. So I was like, thank you for wasting my time, everybody.
You threw down and problem solved.
I threw down. Yeah. Cameras were turned off. Blood was shed, but I'm okay.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I've had. I know a couple of people who have worked in retail security and they've told me stories about like. Turn the camera that way. It's like, all right, now we're gonna you're gonna lay into this man. I will obviously not be including this on the podcast, so don't worry about that.
No, of course. All right, boys,
thank you very much.
Good to see you guys. Yeah, so good to see you guys. I'll speak to you guys soon.
Cool, brother.
All right, awesome. See you later.
Okay.
Dave, the Duke of Metal, has absconded, but I am back with the Sinister Minister, Karl Haikara. We just listened to Through the Abyssal Door by Akhlys of House of the Black Geminus. Phenomenal record. And now we get to my number 20 through 11, starting with number 20, Modern Rites, and an album called Endless. Label mates of what's the name, Akhlys, put out Endless on the 30th of August. And I originally, or their first album, I really enjoyed, and I had very high expectations of this album. When I heard the intro to Endless, I thought, what in the fuck have they done here? This sounds like complete wimp shit. And then they absolutely vindicate themselves with the title track, track number 2, and from there on out, it is just one after the other. Phenomenal, just beautiful, melodic black metal that is abrasive and aggressive when it needs to be, but just every single song completely memorable, very atmospheric, and actually a very big step up on their previous album, Monuments.
I haven't actually listened to this album yet. I just never actually got around to listening.
Yeah, so they put out, or Deborah Morty put out Otherworld and an album called Tenebrous, which was number 21 on my list, and they put this one out on the same day. And both of those, I was kind of like you were with a Deus Mortem record. I was just listening to both of those back to back for about 3-4 days. And I think Modern Rites barely won out for me in the end, but very, very good record.
Sure.
All right, at number 19, I've got Forgotten Tomb with Night Floating, released by Agonia Records on July the 12th. The only entrant from Italy on this year's list, but I mean, Italy never features very prolifically. Forgotten Tomb. Their previous album was a real disappointment to me. I remember hearing the first single and thinking, this is going to be fucking excellent. Getting the record, and I was like, it's not hitting the mark. Then Night Floating comes about. I actually saw it on the release schedule on metalstorm.net, and I was sort of dismissive of it. And if memory serves me correctly, I was doing a news rant, and I listened to one of the singles, and I was like, Jesus, like, this is fucking fantastic. And as it turns out, the whole album is phenomenal. It's one of the catchiest gothic black metal albums that I've heard in a very, very long time. But I think the magic for me in this record is the way that they execute and deploy that melody. Nothing about it ever sounds soft or geeky or like, nerds, sitting by the riverside crying, playing Dungeons and Dragons and pretending to be in Burzum. It's just, it's a very, very well-rounded, well-realized vision of, I think, what they were trying to achieve on Nihilistic Estrangement, but didn't quite get there. Are you familiar with the band?
Yeah, I've been listening to Forgotten Tomb basically since they came out. This album actually didn't realize came out until I heard you talking about it for some reason. I think I heard you play part of it. And I forgot about it. And I remember you saying how good it was. At one point we were talking, I don't remember when it was, but I hadn't gotten around to actually giving it a full on listen before I put together my list. You know what I mean? So I've from what I've heard, it's pretty sick though. I definitely need to get into it. Forgotten Tomb, I was following their career particularly early on, and then I kind of fell off for a little bit, so I'm not as familiar with some of their newer stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I think the album, generally speaking, flew under the radar a little bit. As a matter of fact, I think when I first, when I went back to the track, I'd heard the single, liked it, went back to the track, and I was kind of like, is this definitely a new album? Because there's no one talking about it. But I'm glad I stuck with it. Fantastic record.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how it went under the radar so much. I mean, Forgotten Tomb are a pretty established band. They've been around since late 90s, early 2000s. It's, I don't know. I guess might be part of the problem is that they popped up at the height of the kind of, when with same time as Shining and Life Lover.
Yeah.
The height of the kind of suicidal black metal type of movement of where it was actually really dark and fucked up shit, which was great. but I think that might be part of it. I think that with Shining kind of is able to transcend that a little bit. But I think some of those other bands have kind of suffered when that kind of stuff started like not being as popular or trendy. Like, you know what I mean? So.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think I feel like Forgotten Tomb have moved away from that quite a bit, especially on the new album, which is good to me. I like Shining, but generally speaking, depressive and suicidal black metal is just about the opposite to the way that I view the way that I view life.
Yeah, I think I like some of the stuff that's like really like negative, like anti-life type of vibes, because I kind of like that side of black metal. Even though I don't view life that way, I like art that's made like super negative, like Craft and Shining, and so I like that side of it. But when it gets too weepy, like Abyss of Hate and stuff, I start getting a little bit. I'm starting to like be like, I don't know about this, like I like the stuff that's got some balls to it, like Shining, So,
yeah.
And I always hope Forgotten Tomb were good at that, They never really got too weepy with it.
Well, speaking of a band that's got balls, at number 18, I've got Horned Almighty with Contagion Zero, put out by Soul Cellar Records on July the 5th. Danish band. I think this is one you and I discovered on a news rant we did together.
Yep.
The follow-up to Fathom the Master's Grand Design, which is one of the greatest titles for an album ever.
Yeah, they're great.
And Contagion Zero, holy Jesus!
Yeah, it was number 15 on my list. So.
the fire and the fury from bell to bell on this, and it was a record that I think solidified my thinking on a lot of different things. It was fun having Helpig on the podcast to talk about it as well. But I do completely agree with what he said. There needs to be, in the main, doesn't always have to be that way. There are some exceptions, but I would say 9 out of 10 black metal needs to have some degree of occult bent to it to really kind of tick the boxes for me, to hit me in the feels. And Horned Almighty do that in fucking spades. I'm very surprised this band is not bigger than they are, because the songs and the whole album is of such high quality. Even the music video I thought was pretty cool. It feels to me like this band should be far, far more recognized, far more widely recognized than they are.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, their music's so catchy, and I love the kind of like D-beat elements to it. Like they definitely have a little bit of that kind of like crusty discharge, like melding with like black metal, like, but they're not crust punks. Like but they obviously just kind of guys who went back to the well, like, where Bathory came from, you know what I mean? Like, and obviously they're influenced by like Hellhammer and stuff. Like they just got that kind of vibe. They've always had that. I remember I found out them with their split with Sargeist back in 2003 or whatever, 2004, and been following them ever since. Of course, their first album was Black Metal Jesus, which was a funny album title. But I think they've just gotten better and better over the years, and I think this is probably their best album yet. And I mean, they're definitely a songwriting masters. You know what I mean? Like they put together songs and there's so much like spite and venom and fury on it. Like, it's one of those albums that you definitely feel like, you gotta have balls to listen to,
yeah, it's not for wimps. I would strongly suggest people go back and listen to Contaminating the Divine and Necro Spirituals as well, if they like Contagion Zero. I think those two albums are probably my two favorites, second and third to Contagion Zero. Superb band, and a band with the right attitude and the right approach to black metal, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, there's something about their work that reminds me of the same kind of caustic energy of like Hate Them.
Yes.
But and Sardonic Wrath, like those two albums, but maybe with a little bit more bass going on, but it's a similar kind of caustic, like, kind of atmosphere that you get on like Hate Them, I think. So.
It's that slightly looser way of playing, which in some ways makes it more it makes it more aggressive. It kind of also feels like there's a degree of unpredictability to what they do. Everything doesn't sound as buttoned down and as calculated and pre-planned, even though it clearly is. But you know what I mean? It's like it's just that slightly looser way of playing it. And I always liken it to when the videos came out during the Satanic Panic that I and others of my generation were forced to watch. There would always be some kid listening to some satanic shit in his room, and you would just hear the echoes of it in the background, whether that's Bathory or Hellhammer or Venom. And the feeling I got when I would see stuff like that is exactly the feeling I get when I listen to Horn Almighty. It's like, it's sort of this feeling of you feel like you shouldn't be listening to it, but it's fucking great to be listening to it.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. At number 17, we have what I consider to be one of the best comebacks mounted by a band in many years. 1349, The Wolf and the King. Put out by Season of Mist on October the 4th. I had, of course, the pleasure to hear this album back in April in Norway. I sat in a car with Swartalf and with Idar, and they played it to me, and I just immediately knew it was going to be a good record. Like I knew that this was going to be a step away from the Infernal Pathway, which isn't a bad album, but I think was an album that was a little softer than it should have been. I think it was also a big improvement on Massive Cauldron of Chaos. Massive Cauldron of Chaos's songwriting to me is a little unfocused at times, but The Wolf and the King is super focused, super on target. You've got Swartal's lyrics, that I think add a lot to it. You got one of the best performances by Raven probably since Revelations of the Black Flame. And the whole rest of the band just really sound into what they're doing. Like it doesn't feel like an album where the band is straining to put out something. Guys that have been around for a long time, seasoned salty dogs in the game, they can sometimes feel like it's difficult for them to get an album out. And it was interesting talking to Sakis of Rotting Christ and him actually admitting that he finds it very difficult to write an album nowadays. This to me, I could sense maybe a little bit of this or of that on the Infernal Pathway. None of it on The Wolf and the King. It sounds like the band is absolutely dialed into what they're doing and loving every second of it.
Yeah, I agree. This was 23 minutes, and I think it and it could have even been higher. But again, like my list kind of from 11 on is a little bit like I just kind of listed bands and it's kind of relative, right? But I think that this album is a huge step up from Infernal Pathways. I really didn't like that album, I have to be honest. Like I felt like it was meandering at times in weird ways. The production sucked. It just was not a good album. And as much as I hate to say it, I tried to like it, but I was just like, it's so hard to even hear what's going on because the production is so bad on it that when this came out, this is such a huge step up, stepping right, not just a step up, but it's like stripped back to its core. It's like they got rid of all the kind of like meandering bullshit from Infernal Pathways. They're like, no, let's just write pure, great black metal songs. Every song's like 4 minutes, in and out, just like how they were on like Hellfire and Beyond the Apocalypse. You know what I mean? Like this, or even Demon Noir. It's like definitely a more of a return to form.
Yeah,
and it might be one of the best albums they put out.
It has spiritually to me the most in common with Beyond the Apocalypse. And again, it was interesting speaking to Idar about it because he agreed. Raven did not agree. But it definitely, to me, in terms of its attitude, the whole vibe of the album has a Beyond the Apocalypse feel to it, which I'm here for because I think it's their best album. And actually, I still do. All right, at number 16, an album that was mentioned by Dave, which you poo-pooed shamefully. Brodequin, Harbinger of Woe, out on March the 22nd, 5 days before my birthday, which gave it an extra 2 places up. Season of Mist put it out. United States bands featuring very well this year. Highest country in terms of representation on my list. But yeah, I've already spoken about that. Love it. I think Brodequin is one of the best death metal bands in existence right now. They put out one of the best death metal albums of the year, in my opinion. At number 15, proof that if you don't wait until the end of the year to put out your best albums list, you're a fucking poser. Monte Penumbra, Austere Dawning, released by Norma Evangelium Diaboli on December the 13th. The band is out of Portugal. It's not actually a band, it's a one-man project. This was one that right before I went on holiday, I saw Norma Evangelium Diaboli release this on YouTube. And generally speaking, when they release anything, there's a very good chance it's going to be up my street.
If they release something, I always check it out. I always take note because 9 times out of 10, I'm into it.
Yeah. Moses Smell the Roses was this fucking fantastic. The darkest, True Black Dawn that we spoke about earlier, I feel like these two albums have a little bit in common, just in terms of, there is enough heritage on the records, but there's also, a kind of unique rap to both of the albums, both of the bands. This album in particular has these fucking insanely mesmerizing but really, really haunting atmospheric sequences that sort of seep in from time to time as well. It feels like when you listen to it, it's the equivalent of walking down a dark alleyway in a sketchy neighborhood. And, you feel like you're going to get murdered by some fucking serial killer at any moment. Really, really good, and wouldn't have featured on or would have flown under the radar for a lot of people because it wasn't mentioned by a lot of folks. You're hearing about it on Into the Necrosphere.
Yeah, it's on my list as well. And the first episode, so it's not in my top 25. It's I had to have it on my list because it's it came out right at the end of the year. So I haven't gotten a chance to really delve into it deeply, but I listened to it enough where I was like, this has to be on my fucking list because it's so dark and the production's great. It sounds awesome. Really good songwriting. I mean, I think I definitely sent it to Mike Hill, and I don't remember if I put it on the Horsemen one or not, but I should have. But I was just like, this album is sick as fuck, and I definitely think more people should be talking about it. Unfortunately, Nor Evangelium Diaboli ended up dropping it right at the end of the year. So I don't know. A thing about that I find odd about Norma Evangelium Diaboli releases is that they are and have been one of the best labels of black metal for almost 30 years now, right? And yet I feel like a lot of their stuff goes under the radar for a lot of black metal people. Even there's a certain type of black metal person like myself or you or Nas Alchemist, or because a lot of their releases ended up on his top 10, who make sure they follow what they put out, right? But at the same time, you won't see a lot of their releases on the top releases. Like Verberis was not on a lot of people's top lists last year, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Except for ours, and I just find that kind of odd. I wonder what's wrong with all it. I guess it's just the bosification of a lot of black metal scene. But
well, so as you say this, what I'm sitting thinking is, do they do it intentionally? Because they go, I mean, none of the bands, I don't think that Mortus is going, man, this Funeral Mist album is really going to be the one that breaks big for me. I think I'm going to be able to leave my job behind after I release this. So the people that are in these bands, they release it for kind of their own satisfaction and their own pleasure. Maybe Norma Evangelium Diaboli feel the same. Maybe they feel like, and I could be totally wrong, I probably am, but maybe they feel like this is music for a certain kind of person, i.e., people like you and I that actually pay attention and that are ahead of the curve with a lot of things. Not to sound conceited, but it's just true. Maybe that's why they do that. Maybe they release it that way. They're like, this is for people that actually really give a fuck about what comes out in the scene, and they know good music.
Yeah, I mean, because they just do a post on Instagram or whatever, and obviously, I think some of their stuff gets mentioned picked up on Metal Storm and whatnot. But I think it's just one of those things. Like if you like a certain type of black metal, you really need to pay attention to their socials, because they will just drop shit. It'll have no fanfare. It'll just be, that's how they put out stuff. It'll be like every once in a while you might have a little bit of, like, I think when Varfugi album came out, they put out they did put out a couple singles for that, but a lot of times, like the Monte Penundra, it was literally they just posted like, "Oh, the album's out." You know what I mean? Like, so same thing with like Funeral Mist stuff or whatever. Like they just will drop shit. So you just got to.
Well, when Deiform came out, the last Funeral Mist record, they had a video on Facebook, I think, the week before. Yeah, and it just said Friday, and it had like animated flames, and that was it. Nothing else. You and I freaked out. Yeah. One or two other people I know were like, "Oh fuck, there's a new Funeral Mist album coming out," but I mean that was it. Yeah, didn't feature on any lists aside from ours. Nope. In some ways, I prefer it that way, to be honest. Anyway. All right, let's move to number 14. At number 14, I've got Black Curse, Burning in Celestial Poison. Sepulchral Voice Records put that one out on October the 25th, another US entry. I was a very, very big fan of Endless Wound, the debut Black Curse record. I thought it was one of the best albums of 2020. And good golly, did they go ahead and improve on that album in more ways than one with Burning in Celestial Poison. This album is more focused, nastier, angrier, I would say more caustic, and it is just overall better songwriting. It really is an album that it makes you feel like your head has been scrubbed in fucking serrated edge wire when you're done listening to it. But it is, in terms of a younger black metal band, I would say this is certainly one of the best in the US right now.
Yeah. So I think like with Black Curse, they're from here. They're from Colorado.
I'm about to say they're from your mean streets.
And I have to be honest that a lot of the members in that band are parts of the scene here that I don't associate with. So.
Oh God! All right, so we picked up on some.
So I don't really
picked up on some beefs, some black metal beefs.
So I don't really. I'm not really. I find it a little. I mean, all these guys. I mean, they make good music though, right? I will give them that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they're all members of like Primitive Man and Spectral Voice and stuff. Chemists, I find it a little odd that they're all like dressing up in like cult wear, like for this band, when they don't do that for anything else. But it's okay. They're good. They make good music though. I don't hold it against anybody for liking it. So
you met them and you were like Frank Costanza. This is not my kind of guy.
It's more like just that side of the Denver metal scene. I'm not really I don't really associate with, because I've met a lot of people in it. Like it's a little too a lot of them are a little too woke for me. I don't know about those guys in that particular band, like necessarily like every one of those guys, but it's just that side of the scene. Like here is the type of side of the scene that like canceled Horna and stuff. You know what I'm saying?
I'm about to say no more. You're gonna get them disqualified off the list if you say anything else. I do like the album though, very, very much.
They do. The thing is, they do write good music. Like it sounds good, but I have a little. It's one of those things. Like generally, I don't worry about that kind of stuff, but unfortunately, when it's like too close to where you are, you're kind of like
Yeah, no, dude, I totally understand. I mean, I think it's partly why I dislike the South African music scene so much. I mean, aside from the fact that it's absent of talent, the people in many of the bands are fucking assholes. No getting around it. I would say I mean no disrespect, but I do mean disrespect. The dicks. They're not my kinds of people at all.
Yeah.
So
I think the thing with Denver metal scene is kind of weird here, but a lot of it's like made up of, it's kind of like formed in the last few years of particularly around like Blood Incantation, all those kinds of bands, and they're bands that play in the venues that don't like certain types of bands and all that kind of stuff, and it's just like I don't know. I feel kind of like I never really feel like at home in those places. You know what I mean? So
no, dude, that's totally fair enough.
Real scene.
Well, definitely more our kinds of people. At number 13, Night Shall Drape Us, Lunatic Choir. Already spoke about that. It is a 10 out of 10 album that, really I know I'm going to be listening to in 10 years from now. Put out by Season of Mist on April the 26th. One of my proudest moments interviewing Spellgoth and getting an hour with him. No other YouTube channel has that. So great dude as well.
Yeah, I mean, that was awesome that you got him on. It's just so silly, like the bull, like we were talking about earlier. It's just so silly, the stuff around them. It's just like, shut up, people. Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, if you want to talk about it, talk amongst yourselves. Leave us be. We want to see Horn alive. Just because they're playing in your city doesn't mean you have to go out and watch them and buy a ticket. I mean, I've just never. Again, coming from the 80s and the 90s, where it was like, if you don't like it, don't listen to it. That just is out the window with these fucking, social ingrates. All right, at number 12, we've got True Black Dawn of Thick Circling Shadows. We've spoken about that one already. And then another one we've spoken about at number 11, Bythos, Chthonic Gates Unveiled. Out on Territorial Possessions on April the 19th. In addition to the US, Finland, making a really great showing in the 2024 season. But there you go. That's my number 20 to 11. And just to refresh anybody's memory, if they didn't check out the previous episode, I had at number 30, Vitriol, number 29, Deceased, number 28, Nightside, Death from the North. Number 27, Heathen Deity, Satan's Kingdom. Number 26, Oranzi Pazuzu, Montu Tauja. Number 25, Destructor with Indomitable. Number 24, Deathless Void with the Voluptuous Fire of Sin. Number 23, Hordem Rife with Den Vrede Macht. Number 22, Veil Burner, The Duality of Decapitation and Wisdom. And number 21, Other World with Tenebris. And I will be joined by the Sensei for my top 10 next week.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we got a lot of similar stuff on our list for sure. Obviously.
Yeah, I'll tell you when we say goodbye. What's on the top 10? I don't think you're going to be surprised.
Probably not.
All right, brother. As always, an absolute pleasure seeing you. We still need to do our My Dying Bride retrospective. I know I owe you one, and you need to be on a news rant again at some point soon as well.
Yeah, we'll have to do that soon.
Yeah.
Sooner, yeah. We should get to My Dying Bride before the weather starts getting warm, and then
before you start to smile a little more than you do in the winter.
And we can do a Fugazi one later on in the year. That'd be cool.
Hell yeah, yeah. No, yeah. Well, Fugazi is for the summer. My Dying Bride is winter's music. All right, dude. Thank you very much for your time. Talk soon.
Awesome, brother.
You just listened to Bythos with a track called Demon of Nullification, taken from Chthonic Gates Unveiled, released on Territor Possessions on April the 19th, making their appearance at number 11 on the top 30 of 2024. And yes, I know it's February, but for all of us non-posers that wait until the very end of the year so we can properly review and calibrate all of the past 12 months of releases, we wait and we do our shit in January and February. We're not in it for clicks. So just throwing that out there once again. And also to recap, the countdown as it stands right now, and I'm going to start at number 30 just to remind all of you guys that might have missed the conversation that I had with Nathan Glover of Gravier. At number 30, we've got Vitriol with Suffer and Become. At number 29, we've got Deceased with Children of the Morgue. At number 28, we've got Nightside with Death from the North. 27, we've got Heathen Deity with Satan's Kingdom. We've also got, at number 26, Oranzi Pazuzu with Montutautuja, which, again, I probably fucked up the pronunciation of that, but so be it. At number 25, we've got one of the fucking toughest albums you'll hear this side of... I'm trying to think what could be tougher. This side of Angelcorpse. Destructor with their album Indomitable. At number 24, we've got Deathless Void with the Voluptuous Fire of Sin. At number 23, we've got Hordem Rife with Den Vrede Macht. At number 22, we got Veil Burner with The Duality of Decapitation and Wisdom. At number 21, we've got Otherworld with Tenebrous. At number 20, we've got Modern Rites with Endless. At number 19, we've got Forgotten Tomb with Night Floating. At number 18, we've got Horned Almighty, the Almighty Horned Almighty with Contagion Zero. At number 17, we've got 1349 with The Wolf and the King. We've also at number 16 got Brodequin with Harbinger of Woe. I was fucking stunned out of my shoes, stunned out of my socks that Carl didn't like that album, but be that as it may, you guys sure as fuck like it. You guys love the episode that I did with Jamie from Brodequin, and if you haven't checked that out yet and you like your death metal brutal, that is an album that you do need to listen to. One of the best death metal albums of the year, in my opinion. At number 15, we've got Monte Penumbra with Austere Dawning. I said it at the time I mentioned it to Carl. I'll say it again. Proof that only a fucking loser does their best of list in October. Black Curse at number 14 with Burning in Celestial Poison. At number 13, we've got Night Shall Drape Us with a Lunatic Choir. At number 12, we've got True Black Dawn with Of Thick Circling Shadows. And then I mentioned Bythos at number 11 with Chthonic Gate Unveiled. So who made the top 10? You're going to have to wait until next week to find out. That episode with Mike is already in the tank. One of the best he and I have ever done, if not the best. We actually said it to each other afterwards. Like, we were done about an hour and a half or so the conversation ran for, and when we got done, we both were like, that felt pretty seamless. So great talking to him again as well. And I do know that we have got a date with destiny, so to speak, by doing the 666 countdown of our favorite thrash albums. Myself, Mike Hill, and the Outlaw Mike Scandato. And that is going to happen. I'm going to try and make that happen within the next month or two. The other thing that I will say is when we get to the news rant in just a second, I put an open invitation out to everybody on Instagram to send in their questions. If I didn't get to your question today, it's not because my heart is filled with hate. I just didn't get around to it. So I will answer those next week. Right now, though, my friends, if you've taken the time to announce to everybody that you're going to be joining the rest of the pedophiles and the fucking soy boys and the losers on Blue Sky because you no longer want to post any of your inner monologue on X, then it's time to hit the bricks, because this is my weekly news rant.
A roundabout for judgment. And hang them where the world can see.
All right, friends, we're going to listen to some music. I'm going to be answering some of your questions, but before we do any of that, we are going to check out a new single by Profanatica. Hell's Headbangers announced that they are putting out a new EP called Wreathed in Dead Angels this past Friday. I checked out the first single, The Sixth Hour. Absolutely loved it. The last Profanatica album, Crux Simplex, got a lot of love on Into the Necrosphere, and it's one that I have increasingly grown more fond of as time has gone by. So I'm pretty excited about this one. Thought it would only be gentlemanly of me to share it with all of you, seeing as how I don't believe that it's actually anywhere to be found on metalstorm.net, and it's for damn sure not going to be on Blabbermouth. So let's hear what The Sixth Hour sounds like. Right, I'm not going to go through the whole entire song, but you get the point. I think in terms of what works here, it's basically everything. Paul Ledney's vocals sound killer. His drum tone sounds absolutely awesome. Doesn't sound too artificial, but it has a real kind of thud to it that is enhanced by the fact that you have this really low rumble of bass throughout the production. I love the guitar tone as well. It sounds really kind of almost guttural. And then you've got a riff that I was sitting thinking of a way to describe it while I was listening to that. It's kind of like Discharge started worshipping the devil, but it's really catchy and it just really works. So, as I said, I mean, Crux Simplex was a great record. I kind of feel like they've stepped it up a gear if the Sixth Hour is to be any sort of indication of what we're going to hear on Wreathed in Dead Angels. No release date has yet been announced for this. I think on the Hell's Headbangers Facebook page, they did say that pre-orders would be open soon. You have to assume this is coming out in kind of maybe March, April, if they're starting to release tracks off of it now. But either way, it merits a very well-earned top notch from yours truly. So over to Metal Storm we go. We got a lot to get through today. But we're going to start off with Crypts of Despair. They've got a new song out. It says here, in support of their newly announced third studio album, We Belong in the Grave, Lithuanian death metal operatives Crypts of Despair have premiered the first single titled Expulsion to Purgatory. These guys have been around since, I think it's 2010, 2011, something like that. Never really quite managed to break through, but that being said, I did quite like their previous record, All Light Swallowed, so let's hear what they've gotten up to on round 3. I like it. I think this is the kind of band that somebody who has grown up, well, I wouldn't say grown up, but spent the last couple of years on a steady diet or in imbibing a steady diet of overrated drivel, like Thy Art is Murder, when they've decided to turn over a new leaf and start to listen to proper music, Crypts of Despair is potentially a band that would appeal. The production might be a little bit too slick for some. And yeah, in all honesty, maybe it's a little slick for me as well, but I don't think that should detract from the fact that this is very good. Moving on, there is an announcement here that 1914 are recording new music. Ukraine's 1914 are currently stationed in studio where they are tracking material for their next long player, the successor to 2021's Where Fear and Weapons Meet. More info in due time. That, of course, an album that people absolutely raved about when it came out, including me. Yeah, great that they are going to be back at it and putting out something new. Not a band I've seen live yet as well, so I'm hoping to change that at some point. You would assume that when they bring out that album, they will be going out on tour. And if they make a stop here or they're at a festival I'm going to, that'll be quite nice to see. Dimmu Borgir, European summer touring plan disclosed, probably much to the chagrin of everybody who's waiting for a new Dimmu Borgir album. Norwegians, Dimmu Borgir have announced a complete plan for their chosen legacy tour over Europe. Scheduled for the summer, this track encompasses mostly festival appearances, and we'll have a quicker look at where they're playing. Tons of rock in Oslo on the 27th of June. They're playing at Wacken. They're also going to be playing at France Sillac Open Air. That's on the 3rd of August. And then a couple of others. Summer Breeze, Motor Culture, Rock the Lakes. That was definitely a band that I had very much fallen out of love with until I saw them at Inferno last year. And it's funny because, you can obviously I've seen some of the comments that people have posted on the interview that I did with Silinos, the episode that I recorded with him last year. And I've not flamed those people because I don't necessarily feel like they're wrong in how they and what they're saying. I probably shared those sentiments, and as I said, until I saw them play live. And they did the Inside and the Catharsis, and it was just like the old fan in me was reawoken. So yeah, I mean, again, any opinion is welcome when it comes to the news rant. Some of them will be met with a degree of I wouldn't call it hostility, but a degree of me being a little mean, being a little nasty, but. Yeah, when it comes to Dimmu Borgir, I think see them live, you might just change your opinion. Anyway, let's go to some questions, and then we'll check out a couple of additional songs. The first question, Kelu666 has asked, why are there no more video on the Spotify episodes? Is it linked to the tech issues you had in November? Yes, I think so. I have tried multiple times to upload video versions of the podcast to Spotify, which I'm supposed to be able to do now that I've moved to Spotify as my kind of main podcast host. But for whatever reason, last year, and this was, I think, when I did the last Trivax episode, it's just stopped working. Every single time that I upload anything, we get to the end after several fucking hours of waiting because for some reason, the process on Spotify takes way longer than it does on YouTube or anywhere else. But so after a couple of hours of uploading everything, you get to the end and it just says error, can't upload file, retry. So fuck knows why. Eventually, I just decided I couldn't be bothered with it anymore. Ergo, you'll see the video version of the podcast on YouTube. If you want to see my handsome face in person, or the handsome fetching faces of the folks that I have on as guests, then make sure that you go on YouTube and for sure hit that like button, subscribe, do all those good things, even if you only listen to it on Spotify. Ivan Ferreira JH, he asks, why is Keir Starmer such a cunt? he asked, so I'm going to have to answer. Keir Starmer, for anybody that doesn't know, by the way, the fucking sniveling soy boy prime minister that we've got here in the UK. Why he's such a cunt, I don't know. You would need to ask his parents or his handlers at Davos why he's turned out to be the way that he has. Not to get too deep into politics, but I will say this. I had long suspected that the Labour government or the Labour Party here in the UK, if they came to power, would be even worse than the buffoons that were in charge previously. But they have shown me that my idea of just how deep the barrel is was way off, because in the space of about 7 months, they've done far more damage to this country than I ever thought possible. I'm sure a couple of folks here will disagree with me. That's absolutely fine. Mark my words, it'll get worse before it gets better. And what I would say to my friends in the US, I don't care what side of the political aisle you're on, I would take fucking Elizabeth Warren running this country before I take Keir Starmer or any of the fucking clowns that are currently in charge in the UK. Okay, one more, and then we'll get on to some more music. Grind Your Mind 77, not a question, a statement. Down is easily the best Phil Anselmo band. iBomb could have been amazing. The end. Down is the second best Phil Anselmo band, because the best Phil Anselmo band is Pantera. If you want to call it a Phil Anselmo band, though, then yes, I would say if we're talking if we're saying that Pantera is Dimebag and Vinny's band, then I agree with you. I would say Down and then Scour. I-Bomb could have been amazing, or I-Bon, I think is what they were called. He's put on I-Bomb, yeah. But yeah, I-Bon could have been amazing. I agree. There was something about it on, I can't remember where I saw it. They were interviewing Satyr about it, and he was talking about what it was like trying to record I-Bon during a time when Phil was addicted to the old smacky smack. And apparently he basically just spent most of his time passed out on the studio floor, and so nothing really ever happened. So anyway, all right. News here, Norgevel is on hiatus due to unforeseen circumstances. The Norwegian black metal purveyors Norgevel have recently decided to go on indefinite hiatus. Another one that's very abrupt. Due to unforeseen circumstances, they say, yeah, we regret to inform you that Norgevel is on an indefinite hiatus, and it's with deep regret that we've taken the difficult decision to cancel all scheduled touring and other activities for 2025. We thank you for your support and understanding and look forward to seeing you on the road again in the future. I mean, I fortunately got to see them last year at Inferno. Pretty good, although they did make the absolutely critical error, the schoolboy error, in my opinion, of having the vocalist Dots Admiral turn his back on the audience in between songs, and basically doing what I can't stand people doing, which is turn their back on the audience, talk to the drummer or talk to the guitarist, and then turn around and then just scream the song title and move on. Frontman needs to front. You meet the audience's gaze and you talk to them. Ideally, some insulting trash talk. That's the kind of thing that I enjoy. But breaking the audience's look in between songs is just not. It's not done. It's not for me. All right. Let's get on to some music. Sakis Tollis has released some new tunes, it says here. Sakis Tollis, he of Rotting Christ fame, has just released 2 new songs titled The Fall of the Tyrants and Serra, The Dance of War. Both are available via streaming on the Bandcamp widgets below. We're not going to listen to them both, so let's take the top one, which has a pretty cool looking cover. This is The Fall of Tyrants. Now, the Sakis Tollis solo material I do like, but I have felt it a little disposable, in the sense that, even though it's pleasant to listen to, and I don't, if it's playing, or if it comes up on like a Spotify shuffle or something, I'll often listen to it and go, oh, that's pretty decent. But it's not something that I automatically want to default back to hearing. And unfortunately, that's kind of the same with Pro Christu. So, if you've gotten up to the end of part 2 of my countdown of my favorite albums of 2024, and you're wondering, I wonder if which one of 1 through 10 Pro Christu made. Spoiler alert: it didn't make it at all. It's not on the top 30, and I wouldn't even put it in my honorable mentions. I just think it's a decent record, but it won't be seen in the annals of Rotting Christ history as a Rotting Christ classic. You compare it to Ailo, Theogonia, Genesis. I mean, and those aren't necessarily seen as the classics either. I don't think it compares. And then we're not even talking about Triarchy of the Lost Lovers. I mean, I would say Non Servium and Thy Mighty Contract, no question. And again, it was very telling for me when I had Sakis on the podcast and I asked him about it. He admitted to struggling to write music, which I totally understand. Guys that have been doing this for a very long time, I think you get to a point where either you become very self-conscious about it or you just run out of tricks. Now, I don't personally think he's run out of tricks. I just think he needs to get back to the place that he was at creatively in the kind of early to late 2000s, 2010s, where he's bringing all of this fucking cool Greek music in, and it just felt to me on records like Ailo that everything was on the table, and I felt like creatively they blended that stuff together really, really, really well, and stripping it back and doing something that's probably has more in common with the kind of mid-90s stuff like A Dead Poem and Sleep of the Angels. It just doesn't excite me as much. It's not something I care about as much. I'm sure a lot of people would differ with me on that, but it's a question of what excites me, and Pro Christu just didn't excite me. That being said, let's hear what Fall of the Tyrants sounds like. Same as I felt about the previous Sarkistolis solo stuff. There's nothing objectionable about it. There's nothing that's blowing me away about it either. I would also say, again, in light of the previous Rotting Christ album, you may as well have just put this out as Rotting Christ. I mean, I know he writes the vast majority of Rotting Christ's material in any case. This doesn't sound very far removed from that. The vocal performance in that opening stanza where he actually starts his, I would say traditional, his typical Sarkistolis vocals, that sounds a little suspect to me as well. I don't know whether he was just having an off day or what it was, but he doesn't sound quite as punchy as what he sounded in years gone by. Again, understandable. He's also getting on in years, but nothing that is nothing that would make me say this is dreadful, turn it off. But absolutely nothing that's going to make me go, I can't wait for another Sarkistolis solo album. All right, Sacrifice have put out a new track. It says here, Canadian thrash metal force Sacrifice put out a lyric video for Missile, the second single from their new full-length effort, Volume 6. Check it out. Vocalist-guitarist Rob Urbanati states about the song, Missile is a thrashing anti-war riff fest written about the beginning of drone warfare where pilots were half a world away, launching missile strikes like a video game. War solves nothing. So hear what it sounds like. I'm a big fan of the early Sacrifice stuff, Torment and Fire, For Determination in particular. I think the things they put out after Soldier of Misfortune, Apocalypse Inside, decent, but For Determination, absolutely, in my view, the peak of this band. This is just boring. I was kind of waiting for something to happen in the song that grabs me by the scruff of the neck, and it just didn't come. The vocals sound okay if I were to look for things to compliment. Rob Urbanati's vocals don't sound bad. The production, a bit sterile. It doesn't sound particularly inspired. And, can we blame them? These guys have been around since 1983. So, again, to put out new music at their age and make it sound absolutely fresh and badass, not the easiest thing. But if you do want to check out some good Sacrifice and some just generally some absolutely top tier thrash, I strongly recommend you listen to For Determination. Brilliant album. All right, shall we get to some more questions? Shimmy to the Blast Beat asks, do you remember the first metal song you ever heard? Yes, I do. And I'm gonna, if you'd class Twisted Sister and AC/DC as heavy metal, then I would say the first time I ever heard Twisted Sister, I was about 5 or 6 years old. I heard I Wanna Rock. But the first heavy metal song that really made an impact on me was Thunderstruck by AC/DC. And I've spoken about it on the podcast before. I was 9 years old, ironically on my way to church. And I'll never, ever forget, there's a TV show called Hot Hits that used to repeat on a Sunday morning. And as I'm waiting for my parents to finish getting ready so we can leave, I turn on the television, and the VJ, the video DJ, said, this next one is not something your grandmother is going to like, but we do. And he played Thunderstruck, and I was just absolutely blown away. The most, or certainly one of the most pivotal musical experiences of my entire life. I also remember very clearly where I was when I first heard Metallica. First song I ever heard by Metallica was One, when they performed it at the Grammys. And again, I actually caught the back end of the performance as I was skimming through channels on TV, and I just sat there mesmerized, like, oh my God, this is fucking incredible. That was also a very, very important moment in my musical evolution. Remember when I first heard Painkiller? I admit it as well. I was 12 years old. I was fucking scared to death hearing it, because it's such a fucking evil song, especially if you're not used to that kind of music. I just loved it. Absolutely loved it. I remember, I was worried about playing it too loudly at home in case my parents heard it and thought, I truly flown the coop and, gone full bore into the devil's music. So I was lying in my bed with the lights down or lights off, and I was listening to it on the headphones, and I just couldn't believe what I was hearing. First time I heard Slayer, a friend of mine gave me when I was 14 years old. Actually 13 years old. He gave me a cassette that had Decade of Aggression on, and then he gave me another cassette that had Seasons in the Abyss, and on the other side it had Sepultura's Arise. Really, really important. And then, of course, I've spoken about the first time I heard Immortal, the first time I heard Emperor, first time I heard Burzum. But first ever metal song I heard that truly left a lasting impact was AC/DC's Thunderstruck. Griff In says, hi mate, in the 90s the most popular black metal came from Scandinavian countries. Which countries do you think hold the title now as the best creators of black metal? All right, so that's a pretty interesting question, because I wouldn't say there's a country that is the outright leader right now. If you go by this year's top 30, then certainly the US has come out guns blazing this year. So is Finland. Poland is always consistently strong when it comes to putting out, high quality and a volume of high quality black metal releases. Obviously, you guys all know my thoughts on the Australian scene. I think whether it's black metal, whether it's death metal, I think that Australia is, for anybody who is not within our circles, that's not in the know, Australia is criminally overrated. France is always fucking shit hot. The UK has some really, really good bands. Germany has some fantastic bands. But there's nobody that I would say, there's no country that I would say is kind of the outright, undisputed leader. It's not as straightforward as it was in the early 90s where, it was Norway and it was Finland and it was Sweden, and there was, a fair to middling scene elsewhere, a couple of standout bands, but nothing quite like that scene over there. Now it's kind of more widespread. I mean, I've heard fantastic bands from Russia, I've heard fantastic bands from fucking all over. Only place that you never hear decent black metal coming from, I'm sad to say, is my homeland of South Africa. And it's I don't know why. I don't know if it's just a case of the weather is good, food's too nice, that people just don't feel the darkness quite as they should. I mean, that theory technically can't hold true because it's very similar in Australia, but for whatever reason, I don't think I've ever heard a black metal band that is even remotely good come out of South Africa. All right, now let's check out. Finally, I know you guys are very keen to hear my thoughts on this. So it is time to finally listen to the new Behemoth single, cunningly entitled The Shit of God. It says here, extreme metal entity Behemoth have revealed details and the first single and video of their upcoming new opus, The Shit of God. due to be released on May the 9th, 2025 via Nuclear Blast Records. Production was helmed by Jens Bogren of Fascination Street Studios. Nurgle commented, "I've reached a point in Behemoth's journey and my own creativity where words and statements mean less and less. The true essence of who we are and what we stand for lies in our music, our art, our visuals, our sounds, our performances, and the ways we connect with you. I deeply believe Behemoth represents transcendent, timeless art. The number 13, so magical and significant. If this were to be our final album, I could say I die a proud man. Without a shadow of a doubt, this is the most refined, purest representation of Behemoth. No filler, no excess, just the very best we have to offer, handed to you. Hail Satan." Now, I have heard the song. Many of you have also heard it. But let's just give it 60 seconds to set a bit of a preamble, and then I'll tell you guys what I think.
Eat my flesh, drink my blood. I am the shit of God.
I used this analogy a couple of weeks ago when I was talking about Behemoth. I'm going to repeat it again, so if you heard it before, bear with. Back in the days of Demigod, the Apostasy, Zoskia Cultus, Telema 6, Behemoth to me was like a Porsche GTR 3, the car I would like to drive and like to own most in life. Aspirational, badass. The sound makes men hate you and it makes women want you. It's just, they were, in my view, one of the absolute elite of the elite. If you go back and you listen to The Apostasy, there is not a single song on there that I don't think is fucking phenomenal. My favorite Behemoth song of all time, At the Left Hand of God, is on there. So I point this out as if to say, this isn't coming from somebody who loves to hate Behemoth. There's plenty of those people online, no question, who probably never liked the band. If they did like them, they listened to Storming Near the Baltic or Grom, and after that, they were like, everything else this band is done is garbage. I like the band. I like the fact that they succeeded and became popular on seemingly their own terms. Around about the time that the Satanist came out, there was a watering down of Behemoth, and they became, instead of a Porsche GTR 3, they became more like a Golf R. Something that is, you can still have a bit of fun with it, still sounds okay, but, it's nothing aspirational about it. And actually, a lot of people point to it and they think you're a bit of a fucking dickhead if you drive one. It just didn't sound to me. It lacked, I know for a lot of people it's the best album they ever put out. To me, it lacks a lot of that fire and the fury. That kind of... The attitude that Nurgle had on those earlier Behemoth albums, a guy that clearly wanted to conquer fucking everything in sight. And I mentioned this as well from having met him in person. I will never ever forget the energy coming off that dude. You could just tell that Behemoth was going to be something special. And this was like, I met him way back. This was, I think, right between Zoskia Cultus and Demigod. But on the Satanist, it already started to feel to me like creatively things were starting to take us, were starting to get a little watered down, and the band just wasn't what they once were. Of course, I loved You at Your Darkest. Fucking atrocious record. You've got Jesus Christ, fucking the worst thing that any band of renown has included on a song, children's choirs. If you include children's choirs on a song for any reason, I don't give a fuck whether you sample them. I can't listen to that album anymore. Opus Contra Naturam feel totally indifferent towards it. There is nothing on that album that is in any way something that I can even remember. And I listened to it 2-3 times because, of course, I was going to give Behemoth, who up to that point, was still a band who had some credit left with me. I was going to give it a fair shake, but it's not an album I've ever wanted to go back to. The Shit of God, to me, this song just sounds like somebody who we've now gone from Golf R to the most fucking soy boy electric piece of shit on the face of the earth. I can't even think of what the car would be called, but I'm gonna Google worst electric car, and I'll tell and that the Chevrolet Bolt. They have become the Chevrolet Bolt of fucking. I mean, I wouldn't call this black metal either, but let's say in the broader sense of black metal. Now, does that mean that I still wouldn't want to see them live? Am I looking forward to seeing them at Inferno? Kind of, but this just sounds to me like it sounds like AI Behemoth. The riff sounds like something I've heard at least 50 bands do. The vocals are fucking absolutely dismal, especially that opening piece where you hear his voice, without any instrumentation. It sounds like he's straining to sound like something, but I mean, there's nothing in that in any way convinces me. And then you've got this fucking stupid Marilyn Manson type song title, which, as far as I'm concerned, is just generally it's a desperate cry for attention and a desperate cry for relevance. He realizes deep down, whether consciously or subconsciously, I can no longer compete with the elite of the genre by virtue of my ability as a songwriter. So now I may as well do something that, attracts attention because some people will see it as controversial. I don't even see it as controversial. I just see it as fucking try hard. It's cringeworthy and it's try hard. No question about it. And I say that knowing there's probably a slight element of hypocrisy in thinking that Impaled Nazarene is hysterical and this is stupid. But then Impaled Nazarene have always kind of had that. They've always intended it to be humorous. I don't think that this was ever intended to be humorous. I just think it's dumb. And final point on this track and on Behemoth, generally speaking, I am, of course, going to be extra harsh on Behemoth because Nurgle sat there in a chair, smug as fuck, telling people they should no longer start bands, effectively implying that everything that could possibly have been done in black metal had already been done, so don't bother trying to start anything because, who cares really? If that's that to me is kind of like if you're a fighter and you say this dude in this weight division is the biggest fucking tomato can fucking loser, punch drunk scumbag on the face of the earth, you have to back that up. If you then get into the ring and that guy beats the dog shit out of you, you look like a complete idiot. This is kind of the same thing that's happened here. You've essentially said, don't bother starting a black metal band because I already am in the best one on the face of the earth, and I've done everything that can be done in black metal. That to me is what you could interpret that in its most literal sense. You certainly have to be turning out music that's of such a level that the Akhlys, the Panzerfausts, the Horners, all of the best bands going at the moment, in my opinion, that they defer to you because they go, Jesus, we can put out the best we can do, but we're not going to be able to do anything near as good as Behemoth. I can right now name, without breaking a sweat, 100 bands better than Behemoth on current form. Active bands on current form better than Behemoth on current form. So I mean, I'm not really going to waste too much more time talking about it. And frankly, when the album comes out, I couldn't give a fuck about it because they're just not a band I want to listen to anymore. If I want to listen to Behemoth, I'll go back and I'll listen to Demigod and I'll listen to The Apostasy. But frankly, if you're the kind of person who, like some of the fucking imbeciles I've seen on, on the YouTube post of the song, you're writing there, oh, this is incredible, the best Behemoth has ever sounded, it gave me chills, then you probably don't listen to this podcast. All right. Speaking of which, by the way, we'll listen to another song in just a second. But somebody posted something on the questions that I did want to bring up because I think it's relevant. DVVTHR writes, "How good is Angelcorpse? Fucking great." And funnily enough, I was planning to play Angelcorpse at the end of the episode. I will do. At the end of the episode, I've decided I'm going to be devoting that to real deal music, to the true rough and tumble, old school gems that maybe you've forgotten about, or maybe you can just enjoy knowing that a bunch of the Legion are into it as well. So, we've been playing this year so far stuff like Slaughter, Angelcorpse, of course, we're going to play. Impaled Nazarene, played a track off Ugra Karma on last week's episode. The end of the episode. I know not a lot of you stick around for that. Only the true generals and lieutenant colonels and commanders at arms of the Legion stick around to the very end of the episode. But if you do, it's always going to be a little treat waiting for you. And if you're the kind of person who thinks that the new Behemoth gives them chills, the end of the episode's not for you. You're going to be a little. It's not going to be. You're not tough enough for the end of the episode. So, anyway, on that note, Saor have premiered a new track called Rebirth. It says here, in anticipation of the new full-length release, amidst the runes, UK's Saor offer in listening the last new song in preview called Rebirth. The 14-minute-long music piece is available for streaming with an accompanying lyric video. We'll listen to that right now. I will hopefully have Andy Marshall of Saor on the podcast again at some point. It was great having him on last time, and this was now about 150 episodes ago. But someone I exchange messages with on a fairly regular basis. I like Saor very much. I like everything else that he does. I think he's a fucking absolute top man, and I'm very pleased to see this band getting the level of recognition and getting the level of attention that they've been getting, because they absolutely deserve it. So, on that note, let's hear what Rebirth sounds like. Given it's pretty lengthy, we'll pause there. We're 2 minutes in of 14 minutes, but love it. Epic, atmospheric, really well written, well executed atmospheric black metal. And I think that Andy incorporates just enough of the Scottish influences, the kind of traditional Celtic influences that he's always brought into the band, but he incorporates just enough of it into this to make it effective. I think with anything like that, if you lean into it too much, it can dilute the potency of what otherwise should be something pretty badass and pretty heavy. But I think that he lands it really, really well there. So thumbs up without a doubt. Right, Aborted have got a new track. It says here, Belgian Death Grinders Aborted have released a brand new single called The Pain Will Be Exquisite, a B-side from their latest 2024 release, Vault of Horrors. This standalone track draws inspiration from the 1992 horror film Candyman. Excellent movie. The guest-packed Vault of Horrors took a similar approach, with each track honoring specific horror films that were favorites of the band. Aborted frontman Sven Du Kaluwe said the following: Maniacs, it is with great horror. I was just about to say with great horror. That is exactly what it says. It is with great horror that we present to you The Pain Will Be Exquisite, something we recorded during the Vault of Horrors sessions and kept aside as a surprise. We hope you enjoy blasting it as much as we did. See you all on the road very soon. Let's hear what it sounds like. That is not bad at all. And it's actually not bad to a point where I'm now starting to think that maybe I haven't given Aborted a fair shake over the course of the last couple of years. I think the last Aborted record that I properly paid attention to was probably the Necrotic Manifesto. But since then, Retrogore, Terrorvision, Mania Cult, I think I probably gave Vault of Horrors one quick spin. But, it's just not like this style of death metal. If I want to hear this sort of thing, I'll listen to older music. But it's not bad. Not bad at all, actually. And this is why I say I think I'm maybe backpedaling on my opinion on Aborted just a tad, which is a nice segue into another interesting question that I have received from AWAS Band. It says here, what's a band that you hated at first that you've learned to love? This is going to shock some of you, but I may have mentioned it previously. I did not like an El Nathrak when I first heard it. When the Codex Necro came out, there were a couple of folks that were absolutely raving about it, and a lot of magazines and things that I read obviously were fucking going ballistic about it, and I just didn't get it. I thought it sounded to me to be derivative. I thought the vocals were too much, which again is ironic because now I absolutely fucking love it. And yeah, I just didn't think that it quite. It just didn't land for me. And it was only on Eschaton, which they put out in 2006, that I was like, whoa, there's something more to this than I had given them credit for. And then obviously since then, up to and excluding Endarkenment, their last record, they have to me been a band that have consistently been on every single record at least a 9 out of 10. But it took me a while to come around to them. I did not like them at first. And then obviously I also mentioned earlier that I've fallen out of love with bands. And I, then come back to them eventually. But I mean, everyone does that. Dimmu Borgir was like that. I mean, have I fallen in love with them again? I've gone back and I've listened to Spiritual Black Dimensions an awful lot. But I wouldn't say I necessarily have been. I'm still not. I don't feel about them like I felt when I was 15, 16 years old when I heard Enthroned Darkness Triumphant for the first time. Like, that was a fucking phenomenal record. When I heard it the first time, I loved it. But the reality is their newer stuff is not a patch on the high point, the high watermark of their career, which was Spiritual Black Dimensions. All right, one more question. Weapons of Reason asks, are we seeing a shift away from legacy music press, including webzines, towards podcasts? With that one, I kind of need to try and remove my own personal bias from it, because I'm inclined, or my initial instinct is to say yes. But I mean, you also have to remember, I think when I last checked, Decibel Magazine has a monthly circulation of about between 30 and 50,000, depending on the sources that you want to believe. Metal Hammer's last published circulation, I believe, was like 2006. And they were, I think at that point, they were 44,000. Now, I'm sure that's dropped. It's probably nearer 20,000, maybe 15,000, but that's still a reasonable amount. If I take just my podcast, in terms of listenership per month, or not listener, let's say listenership and viewing on YouTube per month, it's probably relatively close to Metal Hammer, but then I publish once a week. They publish once a month. What I would definitely say, though, so actually, yeah, let me just close the loop on the conversation around magazines. I think magazines still have their place when it comes to the business end of things. For somebody who's working in PR, for a record label, generally speaking, to be able to get your band on the cover of Decibel or the cover of Metal Hammer or the cover of Karap magazine, regardless of my feelings about the authenticity and the realness of those magazines, it is still a big deal, because you're able to go back and say, I got them on the cover of X, circulation was Y, and there's still some degree of kudos to that. What I will say, and I've heard this firsthand from people working in the industry, is that even though the volume of listeners on a podcast like mine or a podcast like Cheyenne's or on Jerry's channel isn't quite the same as the Metal Hammer or Decibel circulation, the level of engagement is often, for certain types of bands, higher. Connor from Apocalyptic Witchcraft told me outright they saw far higher returns on just premiering the last Antichrist Imperium songs on Into the Necrosphere than they saw for the ads that they ran for the album in Decibel. So, and I think that's down to the fact that when you're listening to a podcast, you're actively engaging in most cases with content. You're listening, you're hearing the songs, you're hearing the band speak. You're getting the nuance of the conversation, which is something that I always hated about writing for Chronicles of Chaos and Metal Rules. Is when I was transcribing an interview, I would often, stumble on these moments that I had over the course of the conversation and think to myself, it's such a shame that I'm not going to be able to convey what it felt like to be in that conversation at this point in time. So you get that in a podcast. I think people more actively participate in podcasts because, as I said, they get to hear the music, they get to hear the conversation, they get to hear something that sounds more natural. With a magazine, even though the circulation is, say, 50,000, it's not guaranteed that everyone's listening to, or reading every single page of the, of the magazine. Very often, I think people see a band on the cover they like, pick it up, they read that feature, and that's the end of it. So, I think if I were a band, particularly a black metal band or a death metal band, I'd certainly focus more on podcasts than I would magazines. And it is also my personal opinion. and I say this without any apologies, and I'm not even going to put in the caveat, no disrespect intended, because I do mean disrespect by it. I personally think most magazines are fake as fuck, and I've seen it firsthand. A lot of people that write for these magazines, there's some people that are really nice, good folks that I get on with really, really well, but the last true magazine, like TRVE true, was Metal Maniacs. And after that, Terrorizer flew the flag for a little bit. Maybe here in the UK, Zero Tolerance does a bit. But most everybody at Metal Hammer, at fucking Kerrang, especially at places like Decibel Magazine, the ones I've met are fucking dickheads that are doing it because they couldn't get a job anywhere else. Many of them don't even listen to this kind of music anymore. And, Metal Hammer, you want to talk about a fucking magazine with absolutely no credibility. Baby metal on the front cover. The Bleeding, I remember they reviewed it when it came out. Cannibal Corpse's album, The Bleeding. They reviewed that when it came out. I think they gave it 4 out of 10, called a derivative. It's like widely regarded as one of the best death metal albums of all time. And I mean, the list goes on and on and on. They also had fucking wimps like Merle Alderslade. I think he still works there, but involved in the band, in the magazine, and that just tells you everything that you need to know. There would also be the kind of people that would be raving about the new Death Heaven single, which again, I think if you listen to Death Heaven, you regard yourself as an active, engaged Death Heaven fan. You probably aren't a fan of this podcast. So even though Death Heaven have put out a new single, I don't think we're even going to bother listening to it because there's no point. You guys know what I'm about, what I'm going to say about it. You know my thoughts about major chords, or just to not upset people, an over-reliance on major chords in black metal. As a matter of fact, anyone who calls Death Heaven black metal, they need a fucking knuckle sandwich served to them, as far as I'm concerned. All right, let's swing by the Democrats guide to rock music and see if there's anything here that is of any interest. Chuck Billy on upcoming Testament album. We came up with some killer stuff. I'm working on getting him on the podcast. Whether or not that'll happen, I don't know. I've also reached out to Nick Barker because I've noticed that he's starting to do some interviews and stuff like that. Would love to have him on the podcast for a proper conversation, but he's not responded to me yet. So I've got a couple of friends, a couple of associates that are reaching out to him as well. See if we can make it happen. Andreas Kisser is still hoping Cavalera Brothers will take part in Sepultura's final concert. There's no reason to be fighting. That also doesn't help when you Andreas, start talking all sorts of shit about the Cavalera conspiracy or these Cavalera re-recordings of Morbid Vision's Bestial Devastation. Like I said, I spoke about this a while back, so I'm not going to talk about it in any depth now. But like, you can't say a bunch of fucking antagonistic things on an interview and talk about how there's no what did he say, integrity to what they've done with these re-recordings, and then you go, but I'd still love you guys to come out and play with us on our last couple of shows. So anyway, speak of the devil. Legendary extreme metal drummer Nick Barker opens up about health challenges. I really miss not being able to travel or tour. If for any reason you are hearing this, Nick, you've got an open invitation to come on into the Necrosphere. I would love to talk to you. He will not remember this, but he and I did share some Jack Daniels at an evening where I interviewed Abath from Immortal, and he was there. Phil Anselmo was there, and obviously Abath. I've got a photo of it as well. That's on my personal Facebook for those of you guys that are friends with me. Really fun night. Decapitated unleashes double video release ahead of North American Nihility Tour. What a fucking great thing it would be if they could go back to putting out something that's like Nihility, which, what an album. Again, you compare that to Anti-Cult, one of the biggest loads of fucking shit to come from a great band that I've ever heard. Jeff Loomis on Nevermore vocalist and bassist search. We have over 350 submissions already. There was a question asked, I think last week or the week before, about whether I'd spoken about the Nevermore reunion, and I have spoken about it, but I will speak of it again. I don't want it to happen. There are just certain singers that you cannot replace. Warrel Dane is one of them. Start a new band. Call yourself former members of Nevermore, doing something new. You know, we have, in retrospect, buried the hatchet with, or shall I say, in absentia, have buried the hatchet with Warrel Dane. We're going to do something similar with a new singer, but we're not calling it Nevermore. Don't call it Nevermore. It's the same as doing Typo Negative or even Typo Negative inspired music. Don't do it. Same as who else was it? Oh, My Dying Bride. I had some absolute weasel, by the way, write a comment on YouTube the other day in response to a reel that I posted from my Aaron Stainthorpe interview. And the title was, "Is My Dying Bride Dead?" And he's like, blah, 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 are you crazy? Or like, is something wrong with you? Cut the clickbait, mate. And I was like, dude, every single fucking My Dying Bride fan around the time that I did that, or straight after I did that interview and posted that reel, was wondering what was going on with the band. I personally think, and I will stick to this fucking contention forever. Without Aaron Stainthorpe, there is no My Dying Bride. I don't give a fuck who they put into the vocal booth or who they get behind the microphone. They can get someone from Swallow the Sun. They can get fucking someone from Burnt by the Sun. It won't make a difference. Without Aaron Stainthorpe, the band does not exist as far as I'm concerned. But more importantly, who in the fuck do you think you are telling me to cut the clickbait? Like, now that you've laid down the law, I'll really take notice. Anyway, folks, I think on that poignant note, we are going to wrap things up for this week. I said I'm going to play some Angelcorpse off the album, The Inexorable. We're going to listen to one of the hardest songs off that record, Wolf Lust. Straight after I say goodbye, I'm going to go light the barbecue fire and make me some steak. I want to say to all of you, wherever it is that you are, whatever it is that you are doing, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you bad motherfuckers again next week.